Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Marvels, Magic Master, and I have clones all over the world of magic. Chapter 61. Someone has tampered with the ball. It won't let Harry go. It didn't chase anyone during the whole game. It must be that Malfoy from the Slytherin team who tampered with it. He wanted to catch the snitch in such a despicable way. In order to protect Harry, all the Gryffindor players surrounded Harry, fell to the ground, and knocked the bludger away again and again. The twins guessed angrily. Chaser Alicia Spinnet looked at the Captain Wood. Oliver, you can't let Harry deal with that thing alone. Let's suspend the game and ask for an investigation. Wood hesitated when he heard this. Harry shouted excitedly. If we stop now, we will be disqualified. We can't lose to the Slytherin team because of a crazy bludger. They are already 100 points ahead. Only if I catch the golden snitch can we win this game. Hurry up. Oliver, take them away. You are by my side, and I can't catch the golden snitch at all. No, if we both apply for an investigation at the same time, you will not be disqualified. Just then, a familiar voice came from above them. It was George who came over. After seeing the situation on the Gryffindor side, the Slytherin team started to watch the excitement. Anyway, it didn't hurt them. George went to persuade Flint to agree to apply for an investigation together. The reason is very simple. He told Flint that they were almost certain to win with the current trend, but if they won the game because the bludger attacked Harry, others would think that they had done something wrong, and that would be a disgusting win. George, you are such a good person. Wood looked at George with a touch of emotion in his eyes. George was indeed different from ordinary Slytherins. Ms. Hooch noticed the situation and walked over quickly. Because both parties jointly applied to investigate the bludger, the game was suspended. Snape and McGonagall, as the deans of the two houses, inspected the bludger, and the inspection results were obvious. Someone had indeed cast a powerful magic on the bludger. However, this kind of magic to control the bludger is not something that the little wizards in the school can cast, so it can be determined that it was not done by the Slytherin team. This situation is rare in the history of Hogwarts. In order to continue the game, the two deans announced that there was a problem with the bludger itself and temporarily replaced it with a new one. And Dumbledore was invited to help monitor the entire court to prevent any more accidents. With Dumbledore's personal supervision, Dobby, who was hiding in the dark, naturally did not dare to make a move again, and the game entered a hot competition again. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, after a full 3 hours of competition, Harry was finally one step ahead and caught the golden snitch before Malfoy, scoring 150 points for the Gryffindor team and ending the game. However, when he saw the score on the scoreboard, he was dumbfounded. The score between Slytherin and Gryffindor at this time was 400-200. That is to say, excluding his 150 points, Gryffindor was 350 points behind. Congratulations to Harry Potter for catching the golden snitch and scoring 150 points for Gryffindor. Unfortunately, the winner of this game is Slytherin, because George from their team scored 30 goals alone. Commentator Lee Jordan announced the result of the game with regret. As a Gryffindor, he certainly still hoped that Gryffindor would win, but unfortunately George from Slytherin was too fierce, and the Gryffindor team could not stop the goal at all. After the game, George returned to Hogwarts Castle surrounded by all the wizards of Slytherin. This time Slytherin was able to win entirely because of George. Otherwise, if Harry had caught the golden snitch normally, they would not have won again. After dealing with everyone, George quietly brought his magic book to the side of the Black Lake. Winning the Quidditch match was just to increase his popularity and reputation, facilitate his actions in school, and pave the way for his life after graduation. But these are just auxiliary things that can help him become stronger. Just like Lockhart, he tried every means to improve his reputation, but when he was in danger, he could only wait to be killed. The real strong man should be like Dumbledore, Voldemort and Grindelwald, that is what he pursues. It's just that his good time studying magic was interrupted not long after. A tall middle-aged wizard with short yellow hair and round eyes found him. "Hello, George." "Hello, Mr. P, who are you?" Halfway through answering subconsciously, George realized that he had said it again. "I am Ludo Bagman, the current director of the Department of Sports and Physical Education of the Ministry of Magic." The middle-aged wizard smiled and replied. George immediately searched his memory about the name, and soon he had the answer. Isn't this the director of the sports department who was addicted to gambling, went bankrupt, owed the goblins a large amount of gold coins, and cheated the Weasley twins? What can I do for you, Mr. Director? It's like this, M's Hooch recommended you to me, and I just watched your game. I want to invite you to become a member of our England Quidditch team. Ludo believes that for a little wizard like George, upon hearing his invitation, he will definitely agree immediately and excitedly, because no little wizard can refuse such an honor. However, George's answer petrified him on the spot. Sorry, I'm not interested in that. Joining the England Quidditch team would naturally be of great benefit to his reputation, but it would be a waste of time. He would have to go to the Ministry of Magic for training every weekend and participate in competitions around the world. It would not be worth the loss. As I said just now, fame is just a side job, and learning magic is the foundation, so he naturally refused immediately. But you played so well just now. I can see that you stopped playing in order to save face for the Gryffindor team. Otherwise, you could score more goals. Why did you refuse my invitation? Are you worried that your headmaster would not agree? Don't worry about that. I will go and talk to Dumbledore in person. He will definitely agree and will give you special permission to free up time for training and competition. Ludo explained anxiously. George's performance on the field just now has completely conquered him. Judging from his professional level, even among the major international teams, George's level is among the top ones. So he must take George down today. Mr. Director, to be honest with you, I am good at Quidditch because I am talented, but magic is my hobby, so I don't want to waste all my limited study time on Quidditch. Especially now that I am only in the first grade, it is the most important enlightenment stage for learning magic. George saw that Ludo's face was getting more and more anxious, and he paused and continued. Of course, I am also willing to contribute to our country's Quidditch team, just like I contributed to Slytherin. So I can agree to join the England Quidditch team first, but I can't participate in training and competitions until I am in the 4th grade. Quote. George's idea was simple. Joining the England Quidditch team now could improve his reputation, but he didn't want to waste time training and playing, so he simply postponed it to the 4th grade. When he was in the 4th grade, Voldemort came out. When the wizarding world was in chaos, there was no need to waste time on Quidditch training. It was just killing 2 birds with 1 stone. If you don't agree, forget it. Seeing Ludo hesitate, George looked down at the magic book again. And Ludo dared not hesitate anymore, and nodded quickly. Agree, I will go to your principal to talk about this, and then we will sign the contract today. The 4th grade is the 4th grade, it's better than nothing. This time he can immediately publicize this matter when he goes back, let everyone know that he has signed a talented player for the England team, so that other people in the Ministry of Magic will not say anything to him. The next day, at breakfast time, the owls rushed into the Great Hall as usual and delivered the little wizards' things to their hands. But not long after, a few exclamations resounded throughout the Great Hall. George, you've been accepted by the England Quidditch team. Oh, look here, it says. The director of the Ministry of Magic Sports and Physical Education Department said that he has discovered a rare Quidditch genius from Hogwarts. He scored 30 goals in the Quidditch game in his first year, and his talent far exceeds that of Victor Krum of the Bulgarian national Quidditch team. George, isn't he talking about you? Look at the back of the newspaper, there is a group photo of George, Ludo, Snape and Dumbledore. The little wizards who have the habit of subscribing to the Daily Prophet soon found today's headlines, which also made the little wizards in the entire auditorium boil. After a torrential rain of 100,000 Ys, George finally got rid of those little wizards with stars in their eyes and left the auditorium. He can only be thankful that today is Sunday. If it was Monday, there would be more little wizards, and he would not be able to get rid of them so quickly. In the afternoon, when the whole school was boiling over the fact that George was accepted by the England Quidditch team, the second attack occurred. Colin Creevey, who was born as a Muggle, was attacked in the same way as Mrs. Norris and was petrified and sent to the bed in the school hospital. Suddenly, rumors were flying everywhere, everyone was suspicious, and many young wizards began to act in groups of 3 or 5, fearing that they would become the next target of attack. George still did not ask about this, but just went to the school hospital to visit Colin, who was petrified, as a friend. With the legendary wizard Dumbledore, it is impossible to really let the basilisk kill the young wizards. He did not take action just to train the future savior Harry. Anyway, he did not believe that such a big basilisk attacked people in Hogwarts Castle, and Dumbledore would not notice it at all. Because of Colin's attack, Harry and the other two confirmed the speculation that Malfoy might be the heir. In order to prevent other Muggle-born wizards from encountering danger again, Hermione officially brewed Polyjuice Potion in the bathroom of Moaning Myrtle. George did not participate, and continued to concentrate on studying magic as usual. Time lasted until the second week of December, when Professor Snape came to the common room to collect the names of students who would stay in school for Christmas. George did not sign the list. He did not plan to stay in school this Christmas. He was going back to Diagon Alley to learn how to make a wand. During this period, he had been learning the knowledge of wand making in the library, but he did not understand many aspects, and there was no professor who was more proficient in this aspect in the school. So he planned to go back to Ollivander, the professional wand maker, to teach him at Christmas. At most, he would have to pay more tuition. If you don't learn to make a wand early, it will be difficult to use magic as the main means of combat in the Marvel world. The speed of casting spells with gestures is still too slow. The battle is in an instant, so there is no time for you to cast spells slowly. Only by making a horizontal wand in the Marvel world can he exert his true full magical power. However, to his surprise, another big thing happened that night. In the Marvel universe, George was practicing the freezing curse in the mutant combat simulation room. Suddenly, his body was startled and a familiar pain swept through his body. I'm torn apart again. After the pain, George felt that he had a new perspective. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. In fact, he had originally guessed that his ability to split his soul might not be just once. Let's take a look at the new clone and the world. Shifting his attention to the new perspective, the memories of 6 years began to flash in his mind one by one. His clone this time was not a human, but a cat, but this cat was not an ordinary cat, but a magical cat with magic power, natural flying magic, and the ability to speak. The cat's name is Jin Jin, because the hair on his body is golden, and at first glance, he thought it was a little lion. 6 years ago, Jin Jin broke out of an egg in a forest. Yes, you heard it right, it broke out of an egg. Its species is different from normal cats. It is born from eggs instead of live births. Soon after birth, he awakened his racial talent and was able to use the magic of wings to fly, thus successfully surviving in the forest. When he was about 3 years old, he began to think about his origins and wanted to find his parents, so he flew out of the forest for the first time and came to the outside world to start his adventure. After about 3 years of traveling, he also had a general understanding of his own world. This world is called a slant, a world full of magic, ruled by humans. Magic has penetrated into thousands of households in this world. Basically, even ordinary civilians who do not learn magic will use some magic items, and there are various magic shops on the streets. The most distinctive among them are wizards and wizard guilds spread across various cities. Wizards are people who learn magic and fight with magic, and wizard guilds, in George's view, are like mercenary guilds, accepting tasks to earn commissions, but all mercenaries are wizards. And there are many wizard guilds in this world, and each guild is equivalent to an independent organization. Jin Jin accidentally learned during his travels that there is a guild called Fairy Tale in the Kingdom of Fury, which seems to be one of the most powerful wizard guilds in that country. Among them was a powerful wizard called Fire Dragon, who had a flying and talking cat named Harpy. Jin Jin suspected that Harpy was of the same species as him, so he wanted to go to Fairy Tale to find Harpy and ask him if he could find out his origins. Unfortunately, when he went to Magnolia City where Fairy Tale was located, he met wizards from the Dark Guild. Because he didn't want to be captured as a pet, he died in the hands of those dark wizards. So there was the scene where George's split soul took over the body. This world is great. Originally, he was still worried about his new clone being a cat instead of a human. But after learning about the situation of this new world through Jin Jin's memory, this worry disappeared. Because the magic in this world is so common, it means that the magic system in this world must be very complete, which is very suitable for him to improve his strength. It's this fairy tale. Why do I feel like I've heard it somewhere? George carefully recalled his memories of his previous life. He always felt that he had heard of this name, but he couldn't remember what it was specifically. It might be some work I haven't seen. The Marvel world he traveled through was the comic and movie world of his previous life. The second world, Harry Potter, was the world of movies and novels. Then this third world must also be a work. It's just that he has seen the first two, but not this one. Maybe he accidentally saw the name somewhere, so he has an impression of it. He was born in the 1980s in his previous life. He watched black and white TV when he was a child. When he was in school, he liked to watch kung fu and martial arts movies. After he started working, he preferred Hollywood blockbusters. In addition, he has a heavy workload at school and is busy after work, so it is normal that he has not seen many works. However, although he regrets that it is not a world he knows and he does not have the advantage of predicting the plot, he can still see it openly. He can play in a favorable situation and cannot give up in an unfavorable situation. Moreover, he has the advantage of sharing talents and abilities, which is already very good. Florida Dimension. George waved a pair of cat claws and chanted a spell. A few seconds later, a leaf in front of him turned into a blade as thin as a cicada's wing. Obviously, this cat body has inherited the blood of wizards and its magic power has increased greatly. At the same time, he waved his hand again, and the blade was controlled by him with magnetism, and it quickly rotated in the air, and cut the trunk of the arm above his head in half. Magnetism and psychic abilities are also inherited. The original body of the Marvel world and the clone of the Harry Potter world also felt that the magic power in their bodies became more full at this time. Although the magic power of the cat is not high, it still has a certain bonus. Of course, this magic power is not important. What is important is the cat's innate magic, wings. The original body and the clone closed their eyes at the same time and activated the wing magic for the first time. Instantly, a pair of large white wings appeared behind them. If a normal person saw that scene, they would definitely think that an angel had descended to the earth. He flapped his wings and flew up very lightly. If he used to fly by relying on the magnetic force to control the metal plate on the sole of his shoes and dragging his body to float slowly, now he has the ability to fly at high speed in battle. You know, being able to fly in the air at high speed is equivalent to having air superiority, which is very obvious for the improvement of strength. Since I have your body, I will avenge you first. After moving his cat body, the clone in this world also spread his wings and flew into the air, and began to search for the 3 wizards of the Black Wizard Guild who killed Jin Jin not long ago. The Black Wizard Guild refers to the unrecognized informal wizard guild in this world, which is similar to some killer organizations and terrorist organizations. The Black Wizards of its guild basically accept illegal tasks such as murder and robbery. The 3 black magicians who killed Jin Jin were not masters. If it weren't for the limited magic power of Jin Jin, he would fall down after flying for a short time because of the exhaustion of magic power, and it would not be so easy to kill him. George had no worries about this. His wizard blood magic power would not be exhausted at all. He could fly for 24 hours without sleep. In addition to his magic and superpowers, it would not be a problem to deal with the opponent, and he could escape if he couldn't. Of course, helping Jin Jin to avenge was only one of the goals. The most important thing was to get some money. No matter which world you are in, you can't move without money. The little money that Jin Jin saved from picking magic herbs in the wild was robbed by the 3 black magicians. Not only could he get the money back by killing the 3 black magicians, but he could also rob the money of the 3 black magicians. Found it. Half an hour later, he saw the 3 black magicians sitting on a grass in the forest, eating grilled fish. He didn't impulsively go up and do it directly, but landed not far from the 3 magicians and began to prepare. According to Jin Jin's memory, among these 3 wizards, one can use the magic of changing clothes to summon magic weapons for close combat, and the other can use fire magic for long-range attacks. The last one is good at wind magic and can use the wind to bind the opponent. Jin Jin was unable to fly away immediately because he was bound by the wind. Florida Dimension. Oolong out of the hole. He used the transformation spell to turn the nearby leaves into blades, needles, steel wires and other weapons he often used, and then used the snake summoning spell to conjure hundreds of poisonous snakes on standby. When he saw the 3 black wizards over there getting up and preparing to leave, he launched a sneak attack. His first target of the sneak attack was the wizard who was good at wind magic. He controlled the imperceptible steel needle and pierced the opponent's brain directly through the ear when the opponent was not alert, and twisted it hard, killing him on the spot. The Wind Wizard can block his flight, so he must be eliminated immediately. In this way, even if he can't beat him, he can escape calmly. The death of the Wind Wizard immediately aroused the vigilance of the other two Black Wizards. When George controlled the steel needle to continue attacking the other two people, one of the melee magicians directly conjured up a pair of swords and forcefully bounced his steel needle away. Who dares to attack our Death Fang Wizard? The wizard is really different from ordinary people. At this time, George deliberately flew out of the forest and attracted the attention of the two Black Wizards. Normally, with his current magnetic force, he could control a steel needle to attack with all his strength. Even if a normal person was alert, he would not be able to react and dodge. But the opponent's melee wizard, who specializes in close combat, is obviously no longer an ordinary person. Whether it is strength, speed or reaction ability, under the blessing of magic, it has exceeded ordinary people by a lot. That's why he could use the sword to knock his steel needle away at the first time. If he hadn't been completely unprepared at the beginning, it is estimated that the Wind Wizard would not be so easily killed by his steel needle. It's you, the cat, who didn't die. When the melee Black Wizard saw George appear, he immediately showed a puzzled look in his eyes. He clearly remembered that he pierced the golden cat with a sword. How could it be alive again? George did not reply. While the two Black Magicians were stunned, he controlled 5 or 6 sharp blades to rotate and attack them. You want to hurt me with this level of attack? The melee Black Magician reacted quickly. Seeing the attacking blades, the two swords turned into afterimages and knocked each blade away accurately. The speed and power of these blades were not as good as that of the steel needle. Since you are not dead, let you die again. The Fire Black Magician, who was protected by the melee Black Magician, spread his hands, and the red magic circle took shape immediately. Flame Whirlwind. A flame sprayed out from the magic circle and turned into a whirlwind that swept towards George. Had expected it, and flapped his wings to quickly take off, escaping the range of the fire whirlwind attack. But this also made it impossible for him to accurately control the blade to attack. Fortunately, he had prepared a backup plan. Bite them. The hundreds of venomous snakes that had been hiding in the bushes and slowly approaching the two Black Magicians suddenly jumped up and shot towards the two after hearing George's order. Ah! The melee Black Magician reacted quickly, waving his double swords to cut all the venomous snakes that bit him in half, but the Fire Magician's reaction was not so fast. Although he controlled the fire whirlwind to turn around in time to catch all the venomous snakes in one net, he was still accidentally bitten by a venomous snake and his body began to paralyze. At this time, George swooped down, closed the distance again, controlled the blade to entangle the melee Black Magician, and at the same time, the sharp cat claws popped out, tearing the neck of the Fire Black Magician with one claw. Don't forget that his cat body now not only has the original power of the cat, but also the power of the other two world bodies. Although it may not be as strong as that of the melee Black Magician, it is already beyond ordinary people. With such power concentrated in the sharp cat claws, coupled with the full-strength dive and flying down, it is not too difficult to tear the fragile neck with one blow. You guy, you are looking for death. The melee Black Magician was furious when he saw this, and the speed of the double swords dancing immediately increased. He actually chopped the blades controlled by George into pieces and turned them into leaves again, and rushed towards George at the same time. George did not pull up and escape immediately, but just kept flying forward, which made the melee Black Magician feel that there was hope to kill him, and followed closely behind. But while flying, George kept waving his cat claws and muttering something, obviously preparing for the next spell. There is a trap. The melee Black Magician who was chasing behind suddenly felt his calf numb, as if he had hit something, and quickly rolled forward to avoid it. But even so, there was a deep blood mark on his calf. It turned out that George had arranged a steel wire here in advance, and just now he deliberately flew towards this side. Fall to the ground. Just when the melee Black Mage was about to get up and continue chasing, George had already flown in front of him and stretched out his cat claws to point at him. A blue magic light hit the melee Black Mage's eyebrows, and he immediately fell to the ground with his eyes rolled up. I didn't expect that a few minions from an unknown Black Mage guild would be so difficult to kill. It seems that the magicians in this world are not weak. With a sigh inwardly, George controlled the melee black mage's magic sword and beheaded him with one sword. Afterwards, he packed up all the valuables on the 3 black mages and continued on the road to the Fairy Tale Guild. He decided to go to Fairy Tale, naturally not to understand his racial background like Jin, but to see if there was a chance to join the kingdom's largest guild and learn some magic that could improve his strength. In the battle just now, he suddenly discovered something he had overlooked before. That is, the magicians in this world can release magic very quickly, and they don't need to use props such as magic wands, which is very suitable for fighting. If he can master more magic in this world, even if the Marvel world can't find suitable materials to make a magic wand for a while, he can still use the magic of this world to assist in fighting. The next day, a prosperous city in another world appeared in George's eyes. This should be Magnolia City. Jin was not too far from Magnolia City, and George could continue to use flying magic to fly, so it took less than a day to reach the city where the Fairy Tale Guild was located. First, find a magic store to sell these things for money to get some food. Carrying a small bag on his back, George spread his wings and flew into the city in front of him. Although his small bag is not big, it contains all the things of the 3 black magicians, because he cast the Traceless Extension spell on the small bag. The Traceless Extension spell is an advanced spell that can enlarge the original space, and it is very difficult to learn. Even though he had started researching not long after the start of school, and even consulted many professors, he could only barely expand the space to nearly 2 cubic meters. It was not comparable to the level of the Traceless Extension spell of Newt's box, which could extend a small world. But it was enough to hold all the things of 3 dark wizards. After roughly circling the sky over the city, he soon found a store with a magic shop logo. Welcome. Lifting up his cat paw and pushing open the door, George walked in with a small bag on his back, and was greeted by an old man's warm greeting. However, after the old man subconsciously greeted him, he was obviously stunned for a moment, because he only saw the door being pushed open and the magic bell at the door rang, but he didn't see the customer coming in. I'm here. George helplessly spread his wings and flew directly to the counter. His clone in this world is a magic cat, and it is still a very small one, at most only slightly larger than the palm. But fortunately, it is also habitually walking upright, not crawling on all fours. A talking cat, what do you need? As the owner of a magic shop, the old man was naturally well informed, especially after having seen the cat from Fairy Tale, so he immediately returned to normal after a little surprise. I want to sell something. How much do you think it's worth? George shook his little bundle downwards, and all the belongings of the 3 dark wizards were shaken on the counter. The old man picked up something similar to a magnifying glass, with a small magic circle rising from it, and began to identify the items on the counter one by one. 2 lower-level magic swords engraved with acceleration marks, worth 1500 J. A ring that assists in strengthening fire magic, worth 1000 J. A headband that can release wind magic, worth 1200 J. Quote, after sorting out everything, the old man said with a kind face. If we recycle everything together, I'll give you 10,000 J. 10,000 J. I see that the wind beam headband in the shop is priced at 6,000 J. Isn't that a bit expensive? George controlled the tail behind him and pointed at the headband on the counter next to the one on the table that was exactly the same as the one on the table, with a slightly dissatisfied tone. Even if it is secondhand, but the magic item is not other, the recycling price is somewhat excessive. The old man still kept smiling and replied, the market is not good now, so if it doesn't work, forget it. But in the end he pointed to George's little bundle. If you are willing to sell this to me, I can offer you 150,000. The previous ones were low-level magic items and not worth much, but this little baggage was obviously a rare space magic item. Even if it cost 150,000 yuan to recycle, he could still find a buyer and sell it for more than 300,000 yuan. If you're lucky, you might be able to sell it for more than 400,000 yuan. You know, space magic props have always been valuable in the market. After all, except for magicians with space-based characteristics, other magicians have to carry their luggage honestly when going out. And many nobles and wealthy businessmen among ordinary people have been asking for space-based magic props at high prices. 150,000. George's eyes suddenly lit up. He didn't expect that the 2 square meters of small baggage he created with the traceless stretching spell could be sold for 150,000 yuan in a magic shop. 150,000 is not a small amount of money in this world. The prices of most magic items in this magic shop rarely exceed 100,000, and few exceed 50,000. Ordinary people with 150,000 J can already live a good life for several years. As long as he is willing, he can easily get hundreds of small burdens like this in a day. This also means that his avatar in this world will no longer be short of money in the future. But after thinking about it carefully, he gave up this naive idea. Things are rare and valuable. If he does too much, they will become worthless and may easily cause unnecessary trouble. As long as you have enough money, the main thing at this stage is to study magic. It can only be said that some magic in the Harry Potter world is very useful. A traceless stretching spell actually allowed him to indirectly achieve financial freedom in this world. 200,000, we won't sell it for less. George rolled his eyes, reached out and took the small bundle in his hand again. The old man didn't hesitate at all when he heard this, and quickly took out a box from under the counter, then counted a stack of thick banknotes and handed it into George's hands. Okay, 200,000 is 200,000. There are a total of 212,000 here. Please keep it. He could easily make hundreds of thousands by reselling it for 200,000 yuan. It was still a pure profit, so he made a lot of money. You won't even pay back the price. Seeing that his boss was so straightforward, George knew that he must have gotten a low price, but he pretended to be depressed on the surface, but he didn't care in his heart. For him, that little baggage can be easily taken out. How about this, customer, I'll give you a 20% discount on everything you buy in my store today. Afraid that George would regret it, the old man quickly added another sentence. That's pretty much it. Chow Hai took the money, threw the small bundle on the counter, and started to browse in the store. This magic shop is not big, but it does have a lot of stuff. He saw a lot of magic-enhanced knives, swords, armors, various magic items, basic magic books, magic magazines, etc. He is not interested in knives, swords, and armor, not to mention that his cat body is not suitable. Even if he can transform into a human form, he does not like to fight in close quarters with a sword. It is too dangerous. He is a magician. What he focused on were those magic magazines, magic books and magic props. The magic magazine mainly talks about the dynamics of the major guilds in the kingdom's magic world, which helps him understand the world in more detail, and also the fairy tale guild in more detail. Magic books are the popularization of basic magic knowledge, the classification of magic, the history of magic, etc. The functions of magic props are diverse, including life, combat, and rich functions. How much do Feng Yang's glasses cost? After picking and choosing, he soon found a magic item that he was very interested in. According to the description on the counter, as long as you wear Feng Yang's glasses and read a book, you can browse at a speed of 5 pages per second, which can help users quickly learn corresponding knowledge. He now has to learn the magic system of this world from scratch and needs to read a lot of magic books. If Feng Yang's glasses are real, it can greatly improve his learning efficiency. Guest, you are really discerning. This is one of the best magic props in our store. It costs 50,000 J. I'll give you a 20% discount and it'll only cost 40,000. Seeing that George had chosen one of the most expensive magic props in the store, the old man immediately trotted over from the counter with a smile on his face. Except for the Goblin Queen, this is a rare big deal today. Pack this together with the books and magazines I picked just now. George didn't bargain anymore, and just waved his cat's paw and replied. 10 minutes later, the old man placed the wrapped package, which was almost half a man's height, in front of George. Chengai's total is 80,000, and after 20% off, it's 64,000. If necessary, I have a magic trolley here. Need not. He waved to interrupt the old man's sales pitch. After paying the money, George cast a levitating spell on the package, spread his wings and tail to hook the package and left the magic shop. On the street, the residents of the town would always look at George curiously when passing by him, but they only looked at him a few times and did not stop or watch. For people in this world, George's situation is not that unusual. After finding a pretty good hotel and paying a 3-day deposit, George took the things he bought and stayed temporarily. In fact, with his current cat body, he could just find a place in the woods outside the city, but he felt there was no need to wrong himself. Since he has money, he naturally wants to live more comfortably. If someone has made good food and drink, why should he live in the wild like Jin Jin? His body is a cat, but his soul is still a human. It just so happens that in the past few days, in addition to briefly understanding the magic of this world, you can also get a good understanding of what kind of guild fairy tale is through magazines and local ordinary people. He wanted to join fairy tale to learn more powerful magic, but he couldn't just come in so rashly, he had to at least have a general understanding of it. If he finds that it is not suitable in some aspects, he can also find other magician guilds. There are many magician guilds in this world, and there are several as famous as fairy tale. There is no need to hang yourself from a tree. Let's try to see if this thing is really useful. Sitting on the bed in the hotel room, he picked up Feng Yang's glasses and put them on. Although the size was not suitable, it could be used barely. Picking up a thick book about the types of magic in this world, George input a trace of magic power into Feng Yang's glasses. Suddenly, several small magic circles rose on the glasses. He felt that when he looked at the magic book through the glasses, the words were directly imprinted in his mind without him having to read them carefully. The same was true when he quickly turned to the second page. It seemed that as long as you turned the pages quickly, you didn't have to worry about not being able to read or digest them in time. The magic book that would have taken several days to finish was finished in less than an hour with Feng Yang's glasses at this moment. It was just that after reading it, the brain felt a little dizzy. According to the old man's introduction before, it is best to use Feng Yang's glasses for no more than 2 hours a day, otherwise the brain will be particularly tired. But George has psychic abilities and feels that he should be able to withstand 3 or 4 hours. As for this shortcoming, he felt that the flaws outweighed the advantages. Think about it, a book that took several days to read can now be finished in an hour. Even if it can only be used once a day, the efficiency has increased several times. Moreover, during the cooling period, you can do other things, such as practicing magic, digesting the magic knowledge learned from reading books, etc. When I have a certain level of magic in this world, I must be the first to learn to make this magic prop. Taking off Feng Yang's glasses, George secretly decided in his heart. If there is such a learning artifact in Hogwarts, he can really read all the thousands of magic books in the library before graduation and become the most knowledgeable wizard in the wizarding world. But speaking of which, there are quite a few types of magic in this world. He had just finished reading the entire book about the magic system of this world, and found that the magic in this world was quite different from the magic system in the Harry Potter world. The Harry Potter world is mainly about life, and most spells are created to make the lives of wizards more convenient and beautiful, while the magic in this world is mainly for fighting. And there are many types of magic. In addition to the normal magic systems of various elements that he can understand, there are also some special magics, such as the dressing magic of the melee black magician he killed before. Buy various magic weapons and put them in a specific space, which can be summoned and replaced immediately during battle. The size of the space depends on the mastery of this magic. Making various elements into various shapes to increase the attack power of the modeling magic. Attachment magic to attach souls to various objects for fighting. Using a special star key to open the gate of the star world and summon various stars to help fight the star magic. There are hundreds of subdivisions such as smoke, warriors, paintings, text, speed, spells, reception, etc. That's not all. There are also extremely dangerous forbidden magic, lost magic, and super magic that can destroy towns and even the entire continent. But generally speaking, it is divided into 2 categories, possession system and ability system. The possession system is to use magic props to cooperate with one's own magic power to cast magic, such as star magic and card magic. The ability system is to use the cultivated magic power to manifest various magics, such as modeling magic, receiving magic, etc. After a short rest, he started reading magazines about major wizard guilds. 2 days later, George spread his wings and flew out of the window of the room, passing through the Carthia Cathedral in the city center, crossing a clear stream, and on the high ground in front of the big forest in the northwest corner, he saw the famous fairy tale wizard guild of this kingdom. This is a 3-story building with 2 flying fairies on the gate plaque, and the guild's unique fairy logo is hung on the roof. After 2 days of understanding from magazines and local people, the Fairy Tale Guild is a wizard guild with a history of 100 years, and the local reputation is very good. There has never been a case of fairy tale wizards bullying ordinary people, which shows that the guild's character should be fine. It's just that their behavior is a little bit out of tune. Regardless of the difficulty of the tasks they receive, they can basically complete them, but when completing the tasks, they often cannot control the power of magic and cause a lot of damage to public facilities, and are publicly condemned by the Magic Council. With his current strength, he is definitely not a master in this world. So finding a wizard guild with a more reliable reputation and character in all aspects will help him study and research magic with peace of mind. The most important thing is that this wizard guild has already had a precedent of a magic cat like him joining, so his success rate in joining the guild will be much higher. Standing in front of the guild gate, George stretched out his cat claws and pushed open the door with exquisite patterns. A very spacious hall appeared in front of him. The hall was filled with chairs. 2s and 3s of wizards gathered at a table, drinking wine and talking about their mission experiences. It looked very lively. Because the door was suddenly opened, these wizards also looked towards the door. When they saw George, a kitten with golden hair, standing at the door, they couldn't help but blinked. "Harpy, why did you dye your hair golden? Where's Natsu? Didn't you go to Harjan to find the dragon?" One of the male wizards with obvious rabbit teeth stretched out his hand to greet George. George used flying magic to fly directly to the front desk of the hall and said loudly, "I'm not a harpy, my name is George, I want to join your fairy tale, what procedures do I need to go through?" "You are indeed a little different from a harpy, you look smarter than a harpy." A female wizard sitting at the front desk, wearing a blue bikini on the upper body and bell-bottom pants on the lower body, looked at George in a daze, then picked up the barrel of wine next to her that was as thick as 3 people and guzzled it. That posture made George's cat whiskers tremble. He had never seen anyone drink like this before, and it was a bit too generous. "Kana, if you say that, the harpy will be sad." At this time, a gentle lady in a red dress, with a great figure and a sunny smile, stood up from behind the counter, looked at George and said with a smile, "To join the guild, you need the consent of the president. Wait here, I will go upstairs to call the president for you." "Then thank you." George nodded very politely, and then sat on the round stool at the front desk. This white-skinned, sweet-looking white-haired lady is called Mirajan. He often sees her in wizard magazines. She is called the Sign Girl, a fairy tale, and has served as a model for the Wizard magazine, Weekly Sorcerer, many times. She is very popular throughout the kingdom. As for her strength, it is not mentioned in the magazine, so it is estimated that she is not very powerful. Knowing that George is not a harpy, and hearing him say that he wants to join Fairy Tale, the wizards who were drinking also laughed and talked about it. At this time, George was not idle either. His eyes swept across the entire hall, identifying those powerful wizards with names and surnames that were mentioned in magazines. The one who was wandering around in his shorts without a shirt on should be Gray, who was good at ice-shape magic, and Rocky, a possession magician, who was talking about love with 2 beautiful magicians. The man with an unusually tall figure and white hair like Mirajan was Elfman, known as Beast Arm, who was good at receiving magic. The Fire Dragon, Natsu of the fire magic, and the magic cat Harpy of the same race as him were not there. According to what the magician just said, they seemed to have gone to Harjan to find dragons. But what puzzled him was that he saw in the magic history book that dragons had long been extinct in this world. There were dragons in this world, and according to the description in the book, they were much stronger than the dragons in the Harry Potter world, because the dragons in this world had higher wisdom than humans and powerful dragon magic. Legend has it that dragons ruled the world in ancient times, but later, for some unknown reason, dragons became extinct, and humans became the masters of the world. Although the dragons in the Harry Potter world were powerful, they were not intelligent. They were just big lizards with strong bodies that could breathe fire. Several S-class wizards are not here. After looking around, he did not see the most powerful S-class wizard of Fairy Tale, which made him a little disappointed. According to the magazine, the most powerful in this kingdom are the 10 holy wizards. The president of the Fairy Tale Guild is one of them, followed by S-class wizards, and there are several fairy tale wizards on the list. Just when George was feeling sorry, the door of the guild was violently kicked open. "We're back." A boy with cherry-colored short hair, droopy eyes and a scarf, a blue cat carrying a small bag, and a girl with long golden hair and a particularly outstanding figure appeared at the door of the guild. "Welcome back." Seeing the boy at the door, the magicians from Fairy Tale all raised their glasses. It was obvious that the boy was not a small player in the guild. The rabbit-toothed wizard who mistook George for Harpy laughed loudly and said, "Natsu, I heard that you did another big thing in Hyrugen." However, just in the middle of his words, a big foot hit his face, and then his whole body flew out, crashing several tables and knocking away the wizards on several tables. "The fire dragon information you gave me before turned out to be false." The young man yelled with an angry look on his face. "That's so fast. Shouldn't this guy be a fire magician? Why is he so physically strong?" At this time, George, who was standing on the round stool at the front desk, had a slightly doubtful look in his eyes. Since the boy's name is Natsu, and he also carries a magical cat like him, he should be the most powerful flame mage, fire dragon, in Fairy Tale, as introduced in the Magic magazine, and is good at fire magic. But just now, the young man rushed from the door to the rabbit-toothed wizard, and even faintly ran out of the afterimage, and the force of that kick was also very powerful. These performances were much, much better than the melee black mage he killed before. As expected of Fairy Tale's famous mage, it seems that he is indeed different from ordinary mage. George was not afraid of this, but was secretly delighted. Fire dragon, Natsu has such strength. I think the S-class above that must be stronger, and the holy mage is the strongest among the strongest. He is not afraid that the magicians in this world are too powerful, but that the magicians in this world are too weak. Because the higher the upper limit of a magician in this world means the higher the upper limit he can reach. If the most powerful magician in the world is not as powerful as him, then it will be difficult for him to become more powerful if he learns the magic of this world. How did I know that the information was false? I just kindly told you what I heard. Natsu, you want to fight, right? I'll accompany you. The rabbit-toothed mage pulled his head out of the wooden floor and furiously attacked Natsu. The back and forth between the two of them caused other magicians to be affected, and they all roared and joined the battle group, and then it turned into a bloody melee among the guild magicians. But George could tell that none of these guys were serious, because they were all fighting at close range with their bodies. But even so, he was a little speechless. Even if there are named magicians like Natsu, Gray, and Rocky, those magicians without names are not weak in physical strength even when they don't use magic. If a normal person was knocked flying and embedded in the wall, or his head was inserted into the floor, he would probably not die or be seriously injured, but these magicians just stood up and cursed like nothing was wrong, and continued to join the battle group. As they continued to fight, these magicians began to get excited. Among them, the blonde girl who followed the boy was still hurriedly trying to break up the fight, but when Gray was sneak attacked by Natsu and took off his pants, and went over naked to borrow her underwear, he finally couldn't help but break out and join the fight. No wonder it is called the most troublemaking guild of magicians. George looked at the guild hall, which was in a mess and was about to turn into ruins, and the magic circles gradually lit up around them, as if they wanted to test their magic power in the hall. I couldn't help but think of the extremely uniform evaluations of the Fairy Tale Guild in those magazines. Why don't you stop it? You fools want to tear the guild apart. At this moment, George suddenly heard a roar from the second floor, and then he saw a thin old man less than 1 meter tall jumping down from the corridor on the second floor. In the process of falling, the body expanded rapidly and soon turned into a giant 7 or 8 meters tall. Seeing the appearance of the giant, the other magicians stopped and fled to the corner in fear. Only Natsu held his waist and laughed loudly. Ha ha ha, look at how scared you are, I won this contest. However, his laughter was soon interrupted, because then he was completely trampled by the giant, and he almost fainted from being trampled. George looked at the old man with a white beard whose head was almost touching the top of the hall and whose muscles were exploding. His face was also full of shock. Is this Makarov, the president of Fairy Tale and one of the 10 holy wizards, and his giant magic? While collecting information over the past 2 days, he certainly did not forget Makarov, the strongest mage in fairy tale and one of the strongest mage in the kingdom. According to his understanding, Makarov knows many kinds of magic, but the most famous are two. One is called giant magic, and the other is called light magic. Giant magic is magic that can make part of one's body gigantic, or the entire body, and this enlargement is not just an appearance, but the physical strength and defense will all be amplified. From his understanding, it is the magical version of magic, heaven, elephant and earth, and it is said that there is no upper limit. The more powerful the magic is, and the more thorough the research on this magic, the greater it can become. It is said that in ancient times, there were magicians who used giant magic to lift a 1,000-meter high mountain. Of course, this is just a legend in the book, and it is difficult to tell whether it is true or false. But at least it is certain that this giant's magic is indeed very strong, otherwise Makarov would not be one of the top 10 holy magicians, and these magicians in fairy tale would not be able to hide so quickly. He had thought about it carefully when choosing magic these 2 days. There are too many types of magic in this world, and it takes a lot of effort to achieve something in each type of magic. In the early stage, he wanted to quickly improve his strength, so he could only learn one, or at most two. So which magic should he choose? He only had a partial understanding of the magic in this world through magic books, and he couldn't see which magic was more powerful and promising. So he thought of the simplest way, that is, what magic the most powerful wizard used, he would choose to learn first. This may not be the best, but it is the least likely to make mistakes. The world's 10 most powerful holy wizards, and the president of fairy tale who he is about to join is one of them. The result is obvious. Naturally he learned the same magic as the president of fairy tale, so that he can ask questions in the future. In fact, he also has a good impression of giant magic itself, not that he likes close combat with people. As an elegant wizard, he will never close combat if he can avoid close combat. He is afraid of death. Close combat is far less safe than throwing magic from a distance. But he knew that the biggest weakness of a magician was his body. Even though the body of a wizard could withstand more damage than that of an ordinary person, he would still die if his vital parts were attacked. But if you learn giant magic, you can greatly alleviate this weakness. When the enemy rushes to you with your magic after much difficulty, thinking that he can teach you a lesson with his fists, you suddenly turn into a giant and tell him what true despair is. The most important thing is that in the future, if you encounter a situation where magic is immune or magic is forbidden, the giant magic can act on itself and you can rely on physical output to deal enough damage to break the situation. As for light magic, George thinks he can learn some of it. Light magic has a certain restraint on dark magic, and it is easy to win favor in modern society. Normal modern human beings are very concerned about appearance. A person who releases bloody or black, disgusting and terrifying magic, even if he is doing good things, everyone will instinctively think that he is a bad person. But if you have a pair of angel wings behind you, and then wave your hand to emit warm holy light, even if you kill people, everyone will think that you kill bad people. Even if it is not for the power of light magic, but just for its gorgeous effect, he thinks it is worth wasting time to learn light magic. Besides, light magic is not weak, otherwise it would not become one of Makarov's major magic. It just doesn't look as shocking as giant magic, and it is more difficult to learn, and it takes a long time to take effect. It is said that if you don't practice to a certain level, there is no damage, and it mainly depends on the later stage. On the other hand, he thinks that many magics can be replaced by Harry Potter's magic, and the effect is not much worse, so it is better to learn it later when you have time. Seeing that everyone was shocked, President Makarov returned to his normal size, jumped onto the front desk, picked up a thick stack of papers and said seriously, "You guys have caused trouble for me again. Look at the information sent by the council. They are all complaints. I am scolded by the council members every day." Hearing Makarov's words, everyone showed a look of shame. But what they didn't expect was that a ball of fire suddenly appeared in Makarov's hand, burning all the complaint information into ashes. But let all the council members eat shit. Then, amid the cheers of the fairy tale wizards, Makarov gave an inspiring speech. George summed it up in a few words. "It's okay, let it go as it should, don't worry about the council, he, the president, will take care of them if there is anything. They just need to work hard to complete the task and improve their magic." George was still very satisfied with Makarov's performance as the president. His experience as a cow and horse in his previous life told him that he was not afraid of incompetent leaders, but was afraid of leaders who could not take on responsibilities. This president was not only capable, but also able to protect his shortcomings and take on responsibilities. He was definitely a good leader. Only by following such a leader in the early stage can one improve his strength with peace of mind. After the passion, everyone sat on the ground and continued to drink, while George and the blonde girl were brought to Makarov by Muradjan. "Your name is Lucy, right? Since it was recommended by Natsu, there is naturally no problem. Congratulations on becoming our fairy tale wizard." Makarov gestured to Muradjan, and Muradjan picked up a special magic seal and printed a seal with the fairy tale logo on the back of the hand of the girl named Lucy. Seeing this, Lucy immediately jumped up in excitement. "I finally have the emblem of fairy tale and become a fairy tale wizard. You should know that fairy tale is one of the most powerful wizard guilds in the kingdom, and not all wizards can join it, otherwise those small wizard guilds would have been empty long ago. In addition to strength, fairy tale has very high requirements for the character of wizards joining the guild. Any wizard with a bad record will never be accepted. As for you, your name is George, right?" After accepting Lucy, Makarov turned his head and looked at George kindly. "I have 2 questions for you. First, why did you join fairy tale? Second, what other magic are you good at besides flying magic?" As a responsible guild president, he has a lot of issues to consider, so when he encounters such a wizard who actively wants to join, he naturally can't be too careless. Fairy tale has been established for nearly 100 years, has done countless tasks, and has offended many black wizards and black wizard guilds. If the Black Mage Guild sends someone to infiltrate and sabotage, that would be bad. So it doesn't matter how strong the magicians who join are, they can be cultivated slowly. The original intention of the establishment of fairy tale is to establish a place where companions can truly trust and help each other. The most important thing is identity and background, which is the focus of his interrogation. "I joined the fairy tale guild for 2 reasons. George raised his 2 cat paws, then pointed to the harpy standing on Natsu's shoulder, who was looking at him curiously and said, "First, I was born in a forest. I don't know who my parents are, and I haven't seen any of my kind. After hearing that there is a cat similar to me in fairy tale, I want to come and see it." "Hey, Harpy doesn't know who his parents are." Natsu picked up Harpy and raised Harpy. Hearing this, Harpy immediately raised his right paw and replied. It was also the first time it saw its own kind, so it was a little curious. Unlike Jin Jin, who grew up wild in the forest and longed to find his own race and family, Happy was picked up by Natsu at birth, and then grew up in the warm big family of fairy tale, living a very happy life. Therefore, he never thought about looking for his own kind and family. Well, it seems that the first goal can no longer be achieved. George's expression did not change much, and then continued. "The second reason is that I want to learn more magic. Fairy tale is the best wizard guild in the kingdom, so I came." Faced with a holy mage like Makarov who didn't know the details, George did not choose to lie, but told the truth about his purpose. "The first is the original goal, and the second is my own goal." He doesn't want to deal with fairy tale, he just wants to learn more magic. This is not a negative point. "Ha ha ha, you were right, our fairy tale is the best magicians guild in the kingdom." Hearing George's words, Makarov burst into laughter, picked up the large wine glass on the table, and drank all the wine in the glass. Based on his 88 years of experience and his perception of hostility through light magic, he was almost certain that there was nothing wrong with the little guy in front of him. So now he recognized George in his heart. It doesn't matter if George only knows wing magic like Habib. Joining a guild as a companion. Companions will naturally help each other. There will be many companions willing to take George on missions to earn rewards. For example, Natsu and Happy are the best pairing. Next, let's talk about my magic. I have learned a lot of magic over the years, but most of them don't have much power, but I think one should be pretty good. George spread his wings and flew to a smashed table in the hall, waved his cat paw and chanted. Restored to the original condition. In an instant, the smashed table seemed to go back in time and returned to its original appearance. After circling the entire hall, dozens of repair spells were released in succession. The guild hall, which was originally broken and needed to be repaired by craftsmen, has become what it was when George first arrived. I'm sorry, I don't have a good command of this magic, and the repair is relatively slow, but as long as you give me some time, I can repair the entire hall in one go. George landed on the stool again and folded his magic wings. In terms of combat strength, he felt that whether it was the attack magic he currently mastered or his superpowers, they might not be as good as most of the magicians here. So he had to find another way and start from other aspects. Fairy tale wizards are all famous for their destruction. As reported in the magazine before, Gray single-handedly annihilated all the members of the famous German thieves clan, but also destroyed 7 houses. This kind of situation can be said to happen often in fairy tale, so his magic, which is good at repairing things, should be the type that is more in demand, and there is a high probability that he can pass the test of membership. Although he is not yet strong enough to repair a house all at once, he can take his time and do it slowly if necessary, and his magic power will not be exhausted anyway. In the future, when this spell is used proficiently, let alone a house, even a street can be restored to its original state in an instant. The most important thing is to avoid fighting. His goal is to learn and research magic, not to fight and kill. Crack! The wine glass in President Makarov's hand fell to the ground, his eyes widened like bells, and the eyes he looked at George seemed to be as shrewd as lightning. I saw his figure flashing, appearing in front of George in an instant, then grabbing George in his hand, stuffing him directly into Marajan's arms, shouting with excitement on his face. Little Marajan, give George a coat of arms quickly, quickly. It looked like he was afraid that George would fly away from the guild in the next second. George's guess was correct, but he still underestimated the importance Makarov attached to repair magic. Wherever it might be needed, it was really needed. Don't look at Makarov standing there with an impassioned look just now, telling the magicians not to worry about the senior officials of the council and just go ahead and do it. But actually my heart is bleeding. Not to mention having to go to the council to apologize to the committee members, the fines paid alone have already put the guild's finances in the red every month. Here I focus on Natsu and Gray. The guild's financial income mainly comes from commissions from wizard missions, but in many cases the bonuses from these guys' missions are not as much as the compensation they pay. If it weren't for the support of a few reliable S-class magicians, the guild would have gone bankrupt long ago. And the appearance of George gave him a glimmer of hope. He does not need George to take on dangerous combat missions like other normal wizards. He only needs to be a firefighter and help other wizards deal with the aftermath after their missions are over. Of course, maybe George's current magical ability is not enough to serve as the firefighter of the entire fairy tale guild. But it doesn't matter. If you can't do it now, it doesn't mean you can't do it in the future. Cultivate it well. George, he is the hope of future fairies. At that time, he no longer has to go to the council to see the faces of the council members, nor does he need to scratch his head every time to pay the fine. So you said, can his reaction not be excited at this time? And George was also surprised by this. He didn't realize what was going on at all, and found that he was stuffed into the soft abyss, and then a coat of arms was printed on his back, turning into a tattooed cat. He knew that he had a high probability of passing the test after revealing the repair spell, but he didn't expect Makarov's reaction to be so big, nor did he expect that his speed just now was so fast. To be honest, he felt that if Makarov had wanted to kill him just now, he might have been killed before he could even react. As a cat, the body's dynamic capture and reaction capabilities are already very high. Coupled with the superposition of the physical qualities of the main body and another clone, it is even higher. But it is still far from being comparable to President Makarov. This also led George to come to the conclusion that when fighting the magicians of this world in the future, he should try to keep a distance and avoid close combat. He found that all the magicians in this world were like Gandalf, and they loved close combat. Very well, now let us congratulate George and Lucy on our 2 new partners joining us. Cheers everyone. Seeing the coat of arms stamped on George's back, Makarov stood on the front desk and raised his glass with laughter. The magicians below also reacted at this time and raised the wine glasses in their hands. But as soon as they finished drinking, they rushed to George. George, are you interested in joining our team? Our team. If their team can't do it, join our team. Our team. George should join our team. It turned out that after seeing George's repair magic, everyone had the same idea and wanted to recruit him into their team, so that they would no longer have any scruples when doing missions in the future. Even Gray, who always liked to act alone, and Natsu, who already had Happy, rushed in front of George. And Happy also used his identity as a member of the same race to build a relationship with George, constantly telling George the benefits of teaming up with Naz. This scene also made George a little confused. He really didn't expect that he just demonstrated a repair spell that was not very good, but it had such a sensational effect. Just when George was thinking about how to reject everyone reasonably and without hurting his face, Natsu and Gray had already started fighting. Then, other wizards joined the battle, and the scene returned to the previous chaotic scene. But this time, the purpose of everyone's fight became to fight for George. Whoever can stand at the end of the fight has the right to invite George to join the team. You, stop fighting. George stretched out his cat claws, wanting to persuade them, but put them down helplessly. He wanted to say that it would be troublesome to rebuild the hall that he had repaired with great difficulty. But he knew that this group of reckless wizards would probably not listen to him. To be honest, he felt that if these wizards of fairy tale were in Hogwarts, they would definitely all be assigned to Gryffindor, and none of them would escape. Turning his head to look at Makarov, Makarov saw George frowning, immediately put down the wine glass, turned into a giant, and went forward to knock all the wizards to the ground in a few seconds. George decides which team he wants to join. If you guys make him unhappy, I will break all your legs. George is the hope of the future fairies. You can't let these guys scare George. If you scare George away, he will have no place to cry. And Gray and Natsu, you two too, be careful when Urza comes back, I will let her deal with you severely. Hearing the president's devilish roar, the wizards nodded like chickens pecking at rice. The president was still very scary when he was angry, especially when he mentioned the more terrifying fairy queen Urza. If Urza knew that they had made the president angry, they would really be dead when they came back. You know, Natsu and Gray, the strongest among them, have challenged Urza to a duel. With just a few moves, the two were beaten half to death. If you make the president angry, he will at most turn into a giant to scare people, but if you make Urza angry, she will really beat you to the point where you are left with only one breath. Looking at the messy guild hall, George flew up again helplessly, and used the repair spell to restore the hall, and then politely said to everyone, "Thank you for your warm invitation, but my current magic ability is low, and I don't want to join a team to do the task. I hope to stay in the guild to learn magic and improve myself. When there is a chance in the future, I will definitely join everyone to complete the task together. It is impossible to go out of the guild to do the task. Even if he helps other wizards to clean up, he will have to wait for a few years until he is strong enough. At this stage, he can only help to restore the living room that is often damaged." After this tossing, he has clearly understood his importance to this guild, so he naturally has new ideas about some things. Originally, he thought that in order to stay in the guild, he would go out more to help the wizards of the guild to clean up, and use the repair spell more times for places that are too damaged. It is tiring, but as long as he can stay in this guild, he will have the opportunity to learn the world's top magic. But now it seems that this is really not necessary. Given the importance the president places on him, he could stay in the guild for a year or two, work hard to improve himself, and then go to help when he has mastered the apparition and made great progress in the repair spell. This way, a lot of time wasted on the road can be saved. Sure enough, when he expressed his thoughts and looked at Makarov, Makarov nodded without hesitation. Since George doesn't want to form a team for the time being, you can just disperse. Go to the task bar and find a task you can do. Get out and do the task. For Makarov, he didn't expect George to play a big role now. What he valued was George's future. After all, it was very difficult for George to repair a hall. It would take at least 10 days and a half months to repair the big damage that Gray and Natsu often did. Instead of doing this, it is better to improve your strength first, and when your magic strength is up, you can play a better role and be more efficient. Knowing that the fight was hopeless, the wizards stopped harassing George and started to do business, which was to go to the task bulletin board in the hall to accept tasks that suited them. The magicians take on missions to make money and gain knowledge. They train and improve their magic abilities through fighting in missions. In this world, Few magicians like to calm down and improve their strength through theory and research. Most of them like adventure and like to push themselves in battle and develop their potential in desperate situations to greatly improve their strength. So the mortality rate is also very high. George doesn't like adventure. He still likes to steadily improve his strength in a safe environment. Lebby, come here. You are going to the library to read books, right? Take George with you and take good care of our new members. Makarov sat back on the bar and saw 3 magicians walking towards the entrance of the basement of the hall. He immediately shouted to the leading female magician with blue short hair and a lowly figure. The blue short-haired female magician quickly trotted over after hearing the words. Okay, President, I promise to complete the task. Lebby is the most knowledgeable magician in our guild. She has read most of the magic books in the library. If you want to learn any magic, you can ask her. Makarov looked at George kindly. George nodded, then stretched out his cat paw to Lebby. Hello, I'm George, I'll trouble you next. No trouble. It's normal for companions to help each other, and the president is too kind. The president is the most knowledgeable magician in our guild. Lebby bent down and stretched out her hand to pinch George's cat paw with 2 fingers, with little stars in her eyes. She didn't have much demand for George's repair magic, but she felt that the serious kitten looked really cute. Ha ha ha, George, if you have any magic questions in the future, you can also ask me. Hearing Lebby praising himself, Makarov immediately raised his head and laughed. The older he got, the younger he became. The 88-year-old Makarov sometimes acted like a child, and liked to be admired and praised. I will definitely ask the elder. George's eyes lit up when he heard this, and Makarov suddenly had a drop of cold sweat on his forehead for some reason. So, George and Levi walked and talked to the library in the basement. This female magician named Levi was indeed very knowledgeable. She talked about all kinds of magic knowledge casually, which made George very excited. When he encountered something he didn't understand, he immediately asked for advice. Levi rarely met a magician who was so interested in magic, and she had a great time being a teacher. One man and one cat had similar interests, and they soon became close. When they came to the library in the basement, knowing that George was interested in giant magic and light magic, Levi kindly took him to find the magic books that must be read to learn these 2 kinds of magic. After most of the day's contact, George also got to know Levi and his 2 followers. Except for a few powerful magicians, most of the magicians in the guild teamed up to perform tasks together. Levi and her 2 followers are actually a team called the Lane Engine Team. The 2 followers are named Sarusuk and Doral, who are her fans, teammates, and admirers. Sarusuk's magic is called Divine Foot, which can greatly increase his running speed. He claims to be the fastest wizard in Fairy Tale. His attack method is to run at high speed and kick the enemy away with a close kick. Dolar's magic is called Plant, which can throw seeds of various abilities, and then attack the enemy after the seeds grow. As the captain, Levi's magic is a very special, 3-dimensional text magic. 3-dimensional text magic is to turn the text into 3-dimensional, and then throw it to the opponent, and it has corresponding abilities. Levi gave George a small demonstration. She stretched out her hand and wrote the 2 words, silence, in the air. The sound of the entire library disappeared immediately. Everyone spoke but opened their mouths, but there was no sound. The power of 3-dimensional text magic depends on the amount of magic knowledge read. The more magic knowledge you know, the more functions you can write. So in addition to doing tasks, Levi also spends most of her time in the library to study and increase her knowledge reserves. George is very interested in the magic of the 3 people, but his time is limited now, so he decided to learn giant magic and light magic first. Just watching the President Makarov transform into a giant and defeat all the wizards in a few seconds, he was more determined to learn giant magic first. And just now, Levi told him that that was not the president's strongest state. The president did not even use 1/10 of his strength. If the president uses the giant magic to the limit, even if he stands there and lets the guild wizards release attack magic together, they will not be able to break the defense. Giant magic not only increases strength, but also greatly increases defense, and also increases physical resistance and magic resistance at the same time. The limit is said to be no worse than the legendary dragon. What is the concept of a dragon? Even those mentally retarded dragons in the Harry Potter world can block the killing curse, let alone the dragons in this world. In other words, if he practices well, whether it is the missiles of modern technology or the killing curse of black magic, it is estimated that he will not be able to break his defense unless it reaches a certain level. Chapter 71. Barty Crouch Jr., who pretended to be Mad-Eye, said in class that the killing curse used by young wizards can only make adult wizards bleed from the nose, and he also learned from Hagrid that most large magical animals have strong magic resistance. So the killing curse is not a spell that will kill you, but it is just relatively speaking. If the enemy facing the killing curse has a vitality beyond that of ordinary people and a high magic resistance, it can actually resist the killing curse. Just like the fire dragon, I have never heard of a fire dragon being killed by a black wizard's killing curse. The method to subdue a fire dragon is generally to use the eye disease spell to make it temporarily blind, and then 100 adult wizards use the sleeping spell at the same time to subdue it. If he turned into a giant in the Harry Potter world, he would not be afraid of ordinary black wizards casting the killing curse on him. If he really encountered too many black wizards, he would not be stupid and just stand there and let them beat him. Time soon came to the evening. Before leaving the library, George found that there was another door deep in the library, but the door was locked. Levy, what's in there? He wondered if there was any particularly powerful magic hidden in the locked door, just like the forbidden book area deep in the Hogwarts library. Just now, when Levy was introducing light magic to him, she mentioned that the first president of Fairy Tale had created the 3 most powerful light magics, which were said to be extremely powerful. Of course, Levy also said that it was just said, because she had never seen the president use it. So he had reason to guess whether the 3 super magic books were hidden in the door. Levy looked at the door George pointed at and shook her head. I don't know, but I heard from Sister Mira that only the president can enter there, and there is a very complex and powerful spell seal on the door. Once Natsu was curious and wanted to sneak in, but he was directly bounced by the seal and fainted for 2 days before waking up. When you become stronger in the future, you must find an opportunity to sneak in and take a look. When George heard this, he felt that his guess was more likely to be true. Returning to the lobby on the first floor, there were basically no wizards in the lobby except Kana, who was drinking, and Mirajan, who was humming a little tune while cleaning. Those who were doing tasks, and those who were going back to the dormitory were going back to the dormitory. The Fairy Tale Guild has special dormitories for boys and girls in the town for the wizards of the guild to live in. Just pay some rent every month. If you want to live in a better house, you can also spend your own money to rent a small villa in the town. You guys come up, I left some food for you, come and try it. Seeing George, 3 people and a cat appear, Mirajan put down the cleaning she was doing, brought out 4 dinners from the bar and put them on the table. In addition to being the guild's signature girl, Mirajan is also the guild's logistics manager. She basically handles the drinks and food at the bar, the finances and miscellaneous matters of the guild. Sister Mira, you are so kind. The petite Rebecca threw herself into Mirajan's arms and rubbed against her, then began to eat with big mouthfuls. She was often hungry because she read too late, and Mirajan would always leave dinner for her. Thank you, Sister Mira. Sarusik, Doral and George thanked Mirajan at the same time. When George was about to sit down to eat, he looked at the half-cleaned sanitation, thought for a moment, waved his hands, and began to chant a spell. Clean it up. Suddenly, all the dirt on the table and the ground gathered together and automatically fell into the trash can, and the scattered wine glasses and tableware also flew to the bar and were neatly placed. In a blink of an eye, the whole hall became clean and tidy. What kind of magic is this? Seeing George's operation, the whole hall was cleaned up, and Mirajan and others also widened their eyes in surprise. Among the magic they knew, there was no such type of magic. This is descaling magic, a kind of household magic that I learned accidentally during my travels. It can't be used for fighting, but only for cleaning. George made up an excuse to get by, and hooked the spoon with his tail to enjoy his dinner. Since he didn't plan to go out on a mission and stayed in the guild to learn and study magic, he naturally couldn't do nothing. Helping to repair the hall and clean up more can also reflect his value and win everyone's favor. As for money, he has the traceless stretch spell and is afraid of not having money. Making some space equipment and selling it in several cities is not faster than doing missions. It seems that George knows a lot of magic. Milla Jane sat next to George and couldn't help but reach out and touch his cat head. George felt comfortable instinctively when the cat's head was touched, but soon his reason restrained this physical pleasure and dodged Mirajan's hand. Most of them are non-combat magic, which can't be compared with everyone else. George, you don't need to fight, just practice the repair magic well. If anyone dares to bully you, all the wizards in our guild will twist off his head and let you kick it like a ball. Sarusik next to him said with a smile. Although what he said was a joke, it was not an exaggeration. George is now the treasure of the entire guild. If anyone dares to touch George, he will have to endure the anger of all the wizards in the guild, especially the President Makarov. Hearing Sarusuk's words, several people laughed. George shook his head helplessly. He thought it was good. At least he had a reliable backer in this world and didn't have to worry about safety. In this way, the few people ate and chatted, and it was dark when they finished. After locking the door of the guild, Mirajan carried the drunk Kana and walked towards the center of the town with everyone. Mirajan, Levi and others went back to the dormitory of the guild, while George returned to the hotel. The first half of the journey was the same, so they walked together. After returning to the hotel, George began to summarize the magic knowledge he learned today, and began to practice the entry-level giant magic, trying to enlarge part of the body. It is best to start practicing with easy fingers and toes, or use little George. In the next few days, George entered a stable magic learning and research. He was always the first to come to the guild every day, and then he would go to the library to read books, or chase President Markov in the hall to ask for magic, and occasionally help repair the guild hall and clean up. Most of the time at night, he left with the Rebecca team. When the Rebecca team was on a mission, they were not in the guild, so he was alone. As time passed, he gradually became familiar with the wizards in the guild. He learned some things that he didn't know before. For example, the magic used by Natsu was not simple fire magic, but dragon slayer magic, which was used by dragons. It was much stronger than ordinary fire magic, and it could swallow all flames to increase its magic power. So normal fire wizards would be naturally defeated when they met dragon slayers like Natsu. And Natsu was actually raised by a dragon, and magic was also taught by a dragon. It was just that one day the dragon that raised him suddenly disappeared, and he accidentally joined the fairy tale guild. He can be called a human dragon. Sometimes George thought that maybe his wand in this world could fall on Natsu. Using Natsu's hair as the wand core should be a good choice. The wand can increase the speed of spell casting and the power of magic. It is an indispensable thing for him no matter what world he is in. If he had a wand in hand, his strength would be at least twice as strong. Compared to Marvel, this world where magic thrives is obviously easier to find materials for making wands. While the cat clone is working hard to learn the magic of the new world, the main body is not idle either. On this day, George appeared at the school gate with Professor X, Wolverine, Gabriella, Issa, Caliban and the children. Are you sure this is really okay? Wolverine was wearing a leather jacket and smoking a cigar, with a suspicious look on his face. In all his years of living, this was the first time he had heard of a mutant having such an ability. Professor X, on the other hand, is much calmer. You have to believe George, our abilities are inherently diverse and can never be predicted. Based on his understanding of George's character, George would generally not say anything he was unsure about. Since he took them out of the basement, it meant that he was 100% sure. Wing. George cast the wing magic, and a pair of white magic wings grew from his back, taking him quickly into the air. Then he waved his hands and recited the magic spell. Muggle Shield. The Muggle expulsion spells were released by George one by one, and then connected into a large area, covering the entire mutant school. The Muggle expelling spell is a spell created for ordinary people without magic power. After the mutant school is covered by the Muggle expelling spell, ordinary people will automatically ignore the existence of the mutant school when they walk nearby. It's as if in their minds, this school has disappeared and they will automatically take a detour to avoid it. Unless George, the wizard, points it out, ordinary people can see the existence of the mutant school. Okay, let me show you the effect. After landing, George led everyone towards the outside of the school. Wolverine looked at George's folded wings and couldn't help but sigh. I really don't know how many abilities they have implanted in your body, even angel wings. Among the mutants, there once was a mutant named Angel, who was born with a pair of wings on his back and could fly. Later, he was taken under Apocalypse's command, further stimulating his abilities. It's just that angels can't automatically fold their wings like George. Oh, shit, it's really gone. After walking out of the school gate, when Wolverine looked back at the school, he suddenly found that the school was gone. What made him even more surprised was that he didn't feel anything was wrong at all. Normally, if a certain building is made to disappear or become invisible, it will be obvious that something is wrong. After all, if such a big building is gone and an empty space is left, everyone will know that something is wrong. But that's not the case now. He feels normal. If he hadn't just come out of school, he really feels that everything in front of him is reasonable, and there can't be any school in front of him. Look, that's our school. At this time, George spoke out and pointed in the direction of the school, and the school that had disappeared from everyone's eyes came back again. Oh, God, the children all exclaimed when they saw the school reappearing. When you come back in the future, take out this glass bead and you can see the school. At this time, George handed a marble into Wolverine's hand. He stored some magic power in that marble. As long as Wolverine holds the marble and is affected by the magic power in the marble, he can naturally see the school. In fact, this is not safe enough at the moment. Only when I learn the large-scale reinforced defense spell and add a layer of defense above the school will it be truly safe. Otherwise, although this can deceive ordinary people's perception, if the other party launches missiles directly towards this area, it can still cause damage to the school. Great, so the kids don't have to stay in the basement all the time. Gabriella's face showed a look of joy, and the children also jumped up with joy after exclaiming, "The basement is just such a big place. Staying in the basement every day without being able to come out is no different from being in jail. But now, they can at least get some sunshine, breathe fresh air, and walk, run, and move around in the huge school. I still want to remind everyone that activities can only be done within the school and not outside the school." George warned the children, except for Wolverine, Professor. He was worried that if any naughty child ran out and the marbles fell into the hands of the enemy, there would be trouble. Don't worry, they are very happy to be able to move around in the school. I will watch them, Gabriella said with a smile, and the children nodded. Returning to school, George asked Wolverine, "How's it going, Tony Stark?" During this period, Wolverine has been monitoring Tony Stark, and today he wanted to use a Muggle expulsion spell to decorate the school, so he specially asked Issa to fly a fighter plane to pick him up. Wolverine smoked a cigar and replied, "Since the last press conference, except for a trip to the Air Force Base, he spent most of the rest of his time in his villa and did not go out. It seems that this kidnapping has made this playboy more honest. Quote, he has become more honest. He is probably developing the battle suit that he has not yet completed in the desert cave. Well, don't worry about him for now." George nodded and said nothing more. It seems that Tony Stark spent several months developing the battle suit. Now it has been more than 2 months since he was rescued last time. It is estimated that it will take some time to produce the finished product. Wait until Tony Stark makes the iron suit, and then go back to completely solve Sandor Rice. He has never forgotten Sandor Rice, the big trouble. It is not his style to defend and wait for the other party to attack. Since Sandor Rice can create these mutant children, create him, the synthesis of Magneto and Professor X, and create X-24 young Wolverine, it may not be impossible to create other mutants. If the other party sends a bunch of copied mutants to hunt them down at that time, it will be really dangerous. Muggle shielding spells can shield ordinary heat, but how many abilities do mutants have? Who knows if they will encounter some strange abilities that just restrain Muggle shielding spells. So he planned to wait for Tony Stark to build the Iron Man suit, and then join forces with Tony Stark to attack and destroy the opponent's lair. Don't underestimate Tony Stark's suit. In terms of firepower output and destructive power, it is much more powerful than his current superpowers and magic, although it is also easy to be restrained. But it doesn't matter, there is still him to cooperate, plus Wolverine who has returned to his peak. The key is that he knows the tracking spell, so he is not afraid of not finding the trace of Sandor Rice. In the Harry Potter world, George found a group of young wizards gathered at the bulletin board when he passed by the castle hall in the morning, discussing something enthusiastically. When he got closer, he saw a new piece of parchment nailed to the bulletin board. The content of the parchment was that at 8 o'clock tonight, the school would restart the duel club in the auditorium to teach all the young wizards in the school how to use magic to fight better. The duel club was once very popular in Hogwarts. It is said that Flitwick, the current dean of Ravenclaw, was a perennial winner of the duel club when he was in school. In a one-on-one duel, even senior wizards could not defeat Flitwick. Later, because young wizards were often injured in duels, the school doctor's office was too busy every day and finally had to cancel it. Now it seems that it must be the opening of the secret room and the attack on the young wizards. Some teachers proposed to reopen the duel club to train the young wizards' fighting skills so that they can have more self-protection ability when facing danger. It's a good opportunity to observe and learn. George naturally has a positive attitude towards the restart of the duel club. His magic skills are basically derived from self-understanding, and many aspects are not formal. In terms of combat, he actually relies mostly on his superpowers, and magic only plays a supporting role. But in the later stage, he must still focus on magic combat, so it is very important to observe and learn some magic combat skills. At 8 o'clock in the evening, when George and the first-year Slytherin wizards came to the auditorium, it had changed. 4 long dining tables were gathered together to form a very luxurious gilded stage, illuminated by hundreds of candles floating in the sky. The ceiling of the auditorium became as dark as velvet, and almost all the little wizards in the school came, crowded together, and everyone held their own wands, with excitement on their faces. Just as everyone was discussing which professor would teach them magic dueling skills, Lockhart, who was radiant in purple robes, and Snape, who was dressed in black and looked cold, came out. The showy Lockhart showed off right at the beginning, first boasting about his magic dueling skills, and then calling Snape his assistant to elevate himself, which made Snape's face even colder. George estimated that if we were to talk about which teacher in the whole school hated Lockhart the most, Snape would definitely be on the list. If it weren't in school, if he hadn't turned over a new leaf, he thought Snape wouldn't mind using all 3 unforgivable curses on Lockhart. The key point is that Lockhart didn't know himself, and actually wanted to compete with Snape on the spot to set an example for the little wizards. Lockhart and Snape stood opposite the stage, and after 3 short sounds, they raised their wands over their shoulders at the same time. Disarm you. Lockhart had only recited half of the spell and the wand movement had not yet been completed, but Snape's disarming spell had already been fired. A red magic light hit Lockhart, knocking the wand in his hand directly away, and he himself was also bounced out, hitting the stage wall and sliding down. What a fast speed! George couldn't help but sigh when he saw Snape casting the spell below. The disarming spell is a second-year spell, and it is also a spell of considerable difficulty. It is one of the most commonly used spells in wizard battles. While forcibly disarming the opponent's weapons, it can also knock the opponent's body away. He himself had also been learning this spell by himself before, and in the past 2 days, he had completed it preliminarily and could release it normally. But his disarming spell was much worse than the one Snape had just released. Not only the power, but most importantly, when Snape released the disarming spell, the wand-waving action was simplified by more than half, and the speed of chanting the spell was also super fast. It felt that the whole process was completed very smoothly in less than a second. That's why Lockhart flew out just after he cast the disarming spell. And he noticed that when Snape finished the disarming spell, he didn't stop, and waved his wand slightly, obviously preparing for the second spell. But Lockhart was too weak, and he didn't block any spells, so he didn't need to cast the second spell. This is a disarming spell. As you can see, I lost my wand. But Professor Snape, don't mind me saying this, your intention just now was too obvious. If I want to stop you, it's easy, but I think it's better to let them see it, so that they can learn some knowledge and know the consequences of being hit by the disarming spell. Lockhart stood up with difficulty, quickly tidied his appearance, and then went on stage again to explain shamelessly. Hearing Lockhart's sophistry, Snape raised his wand and had the urge to cast a killing curse on this guy. As if sensing Snape's murderous intent, Lockhart quickly changed the subject and said, "Okay, now you two will come up to practice, and Professor Snape and I will correct some of your mistakes in the duel." After hearing Lockhart's words, most of the young wizards did not doubt it, and raised their hands and went on stage, including George. He did not believe Lockhart's nonsense, nor did he expect Lockhart to correct them. He wanted to learn from the senior wizards and let Snape help guide his magic combat skills. Lockhart and Snape walked among the young wizards on stage, pairing them up. George was also paired, but his opponent was a short first-year Ravenclaw wizard. "George, my name is Matthew Flitwick. I admire your learning ability and Quidditch skills, but I think I am far inferior to you. But for this duel, I may have to say sorry to you in advance." The young wizard was very confident. Even facing the Slytherin star in front of him, he did not think he would lose in the duel. As a member of the Flitwick family, he inherited the Flitwick family's natural talent for fighting, and he also asked his great-uncle about the skills of fighting with a wand many times. When the first-year wizards were still practicing the levitation spell, he could already use the full-body binding spell very skillfully to fight. "Well, I wish you good luck." George smiled and said nothing more. Just kidding, even if he didn't cast magic, he could easily dodge most magic attacks with his extraordinary physical fitness and cat-like motion capture ability. In addition, he has mastered a lot of magic and practiced regularly. Not to mention a first-year wizard, even a wizard who is about to graduate from the 7th grade will not necessarily lose. This time he was mainly for excellence, not because his magic combat skills were really bad. All petrified, when the battle began, Matthew immediately used the full-body binding spell that he was good at. He can use this spell better than the average third-year wizard. However, before his spell was completed, he felt that his whole body was stiff and unable to move. It turned out that George had already used the whole-body binding spell at this time. The curse stops immediately. Walking up to Matthew and undoing the body binding spell on his body, George said in an encouraging tone, "You are already very powerful. I am just lucky to be a little faster than you." Although he won, his character cannot be ruined, and the time to win people's hearts cannot be wasted. Sure enough, after hearing George's words, Matthew, who was originally looking disappointed, suddenly became much better. "I will practice hard when I get back and I will definitely beat you next time." He also felt that he might actually be a little worse than George. Of course, this is full of naive thoughts, which will soon be broken by reality. He will find that he may not be able to defeat George until graduation, because George did not use his full strength just now. "Stop, everyone, stop, we have to fight with wands, not fists." Soon, the two of them were attracted by Lockhart's anxious shouting. They turned to look around, only to realize that the entire duel stage was in chaos. Most of the lower-grade wizards don't actually have much magic that can be used for combat. Even if they do, they may not know how to use it in a pinch. People like Matthew can indeed be said to be the best among them. So this also led to many young wizards starting to fight after discovering that magic could not win the battle, especially those who already disliked each other. Even Hermione, the academic wizard who has mastered dozens of spells, is now fighting hand-to-hand with her opponent, Slytherin sophomore Millicent. Both of their wands fell to the ground. Hermione's neck was clamped by the other's arms, but she still refused to admit defeat and punched the other's thigh with her fist, which was quite strong. Girls at this age are no worse at fighting than boys. There are also some senior wizards who are not good at hand-to-hand combat, but they are not that honest either. Instead of just fighting with disarming spells as required, they take the opportunity to experiment with some miscellaneous spells. Among them, the Weasley brothers were the most hilarious. This caused some little wizards to start getting injured in various ways. "Stand up, Macmillan, look out, Miss Fawcett, pinch hard and the bleeding will stop immediately, boot." Lockhart jumped up and down in the crowd, looking a little panicked. This was not the result he wanted. Snape obviously didn't care over there, maybe because he thought the little wizard's injury was nothing, and Snape's energy was focused on Harry and Malfoy. He just wanted to see Harry being defeated by Malfoy, but Harry was obviously very talented in magical combat. He and Malfoy were evenly matched, one was dancing under the dancing curse, and the other was under the tickling curse. Ha ha. Laughing out loud. Collapse, collapse. George shook his head, waved 2 stun spells and knocked down Hermione and Millicent who were fighting. Then he shuttled through the crowd, casting spells one after another, and soon all the first and second grade wizards who were fighting in a group were knocked down. After that, he pointed his wand at the senior wizards, and some third and fourth year wizards were not his enemies until he faced the two most powerful seventh year wizards. Collapse. Armor protection. Expelliarmus. The senior wizards were not comparable to the junior wizards. As soon as he joined the battle, George realized the strength of the seventh year wizards who fought seriously. His stun spell was indeed very fast, but the armor spell on the opposite side was not slow either. Not only did it block his stun spell, but it also cast a disarming spell on him. Fortunately, although he didn't know how to cast the Iron Armor Curse, his physical reflexes were far beyond ordinary people's and he quickly dodged the attack of the disarming curse. It turns out to be George. Do you want to compete with us? Be careful. Although the two seventh-year wizards were a little surprised to see the first-year Slytherin star join the battle, they had no intention of stopping. So the duel between the two turned into a melee between three people. The two seventh-year wizards frequently appeared with various difficult spells, and the magic light shot out randomly like lasers. This fierce battle quickly attracted the attention of the audience. In fact, when George helped knock out the younger wizards, he had already attracted the attention of many young wizards in the audience who had not participated in the battle. As the Slytherin star of a famous school, he had just been invited by the National England Quidditch team and was the youngest player in the World Quidditch team. The moment George took the initiative to take the stage for a magic duel, many young wizards are already paying attention to him, no less than Harry Potter, the savior. Now George boldly joined the showdown between seventh-year wizards, and the key point was that he still insisted on not being eliminated, which made everyone unable to take their eyes away. I didn't expect that in addition to being good at studying and playing Quidditch, he is also so talented in magic combat. I suspect he must have the blood of a cat in his body. You see, he doesn't even need a protective shield. He just relies on dodge to avoid all the magic attacks. So handsome, and a little cute. Merlin, I am actually so handsome by a little boy in first grade. I'm just 3 years older than him. Age is not a problem. I want to talk. As the discussion below became louder, Snape and Lockhart also noticed the situation here. Seeing that George could not lose in the melee with two seventh-year wizards, Snape immediately showed a relieved smile on his face. It has to be George. If it weren't for the fact that George and Harry have a good relationship, he would never let the useless Malfoy fight Harry. It seems that I still have to teach him a few more combat spells when I have time. He was very satisfied with George's magic combat talent, but George was still too disadvantaged to fight against senior wizards with those few spells repeatedly, which made him think of teaching George his own original spells in advance. And considering that the door of the secret room was opened, if George could master more spells, he could protect himself in danger. In the past, I just thought that George was only in the first grade and didn't need to learn and contact those powerful spells so early. It was too difficult. Now it seems that it is not impossible. Geniuses should not be taught according to common sense. Everyone, pay attention to George, he is doing very well. He has been asking me for advice on magic fighting skills during this period, so he has learned some of my true teachings. At this time, Lockhart stood up again shamelessly. Snape was so angry that he almost kicked this guy off the stage. He knew that George often went to Lockhart to ask for advice on magic, but it was not magic fighting skills at all, but only spells such as the Oblivion spell, the False Memory spell, and the Memory Filling spell. At this time, he was more determined to find time to teach George the spells he invented, so that the next time George used them, if Lockhart said that he taught him, he would slap Lockhart in the face on the spot and see how Lockhart could quibble. Expelliarmus. Collapse. George saw the gap between the two seventh-year wizards attacking each other, relied on his speed advantage to get close to them, put his wand against his back and cast magic, and finally won the game by luck. To be honest, if it weren't for his physical advantage, in terms of magic level and magic combat skills, he really wouldn't be a match for the two seventh-year wizards. However, this battle also gave him a lot of new knowledge about magic duels in the Harry Potter world. In particular, he benefited a lot from some of the magic skills used by the two seventh-year wizards in their battle. George helped maintain order and showed excellent dueling skills. Although there is still room for improvement compared to me, he is already quite good. 20 points extra. Lockhart stepped forward and hugged George. Snape, who was a little slower, raised his eyebrows. However, seeing that the other party was giving George extra points, he didn't say anything more. He just turned around and walked to the center of the stage. It seems that you idiots haven't mastered the skills of dueling very well. Let's go on stage 2 by 2. Professor Lockhart and I will give you one-on-one guidance, and then we'll start the duel. Professor Snape's suggestion is very good. I will teach George. Lockhart named George directly. The cold light in Snape's eyes flashed away. George is too good to set a good example. I think Malfoy and Potter are good. I will coach Malfoy and you will coach Potter. That's fine. Lockhart thought about it and realized that Harry's reputation was not worse than George's, which was not bad either. All the little wizards exited, leaving only Snape, Malfoy, Harry and Lockhart on the stage. George stood in the audience. He knew what was going to happen next, but he did not stop it. He needed the Chamber of Secrets to continue to be a sensation, because only in this way, Dumbledore would be temporarily suspended from school in the next semester, and he would have the opportunity to wipe out all the dark magic in the forbidden area. In his current situation, if he wanted to learn black magic such as the 3 unforgivable curses and the fire curse, he could only rely on the forbidden book zone. But usually as long as he entered the forbidden book area, Dumbledore would secretly monitor him, so that he did not dare to risk reading those magic books that recorded dark magic. In fact, he is now very similar to the young Voldemort in many aspects. If he shows interest in dark magic, Dumbledore will probably be unable to sit still. So he also paid special attention to restraint. Sure enough, in the duel between Harry and Malfoy, because Malfoy used the snake summoning spell, Harry revealed for the first time in front of everyone that he had inherited Voldemort's snake language ability, which caused great chaos. Most people in the school believe that Harry is the descendant of Slytherin, because only Slytherins can speak Parseltongue. However, the duel club still held every night, and George would go there every night to train in magic duels with the 7th-year wizards, and his skills in using wands to fight were improving day by day. Soon, the time came to Christmas Eve, and the school officially closed. The Christmas vacation at Hogwarts lasted for more than 2 weeks. After saying goodbye to his professors and classmates, George took his suitcase and his pet Peppa Pig and boarded the return Hogwarts Express. When he first started school half a year ago, he was just an inconspicuous little wizard who was proficient in lock-picking spells and other introductory magic. Nowadays, he is already a famous Slytherin star in school, and he has never lost a single match against 7th-grade wizards in magic. This is even if he doesn't use superpowers. If he uses superpowers to cooperate, his strength will be much stronger. After all, his superpowers have improved a lot compared to when he started school, and he can easily control objects weighing hundreds of kilograms. In the evening, before it was completely dark, George walked out of King's Cross Station. Unlike other little wizards who have parents and go back, as an orphan, he can only return to his home in Knockturn Alley alone. He did not notify Tonks when he returned to Knockturn Alley this Christmas, so it was impossible for Tonks to drive a magic car to pick him up like last time. Things like favor should not be wasted on trivial matters easily. No matter how good the relationship is, if it is always wasted like this, it will gradually become alienated. Night bus. Standing next to the road, George raised his wand and waved it in the air, then shouted loudly. In less than a minute, with a deafening bang, a bright purple 3-decker bus appeared in front of George. With an owl as big as Peppa Pig, it's not very convenient to take the subway or take a taxi. He doesn't know the disguise charm yet, and he can't fly openly. So he chose the night bus, a magical public transport commonly used in the British wizarding community. The night bus is a magical public transportation vehicle specially set up by the Ministry of Magic to facilitate underage wizards or wizards who are too weak to disapparate. A Muggle-inspired bus that has been magically transformed to be very fast and can take you anywhere in the UK. It went into operation in 1865 and was well received by wizards. Welcome aboard the night bus, emergency transport for wizards in distress. Just hold out your wand hand, get in the car, and we'll take you wherever you want to go. My name is Stan Sampak, and I'm your conductor tonight. A young wizard in a purple uniform jumped out of the bus and said to George. George looked at the magic bus with some curiosity, and then got on the bus with his luggage. Hello, Mr. Sampak, please go to the Leaky Cauldron. For 7 silver coins, you can get chocolate for 10, and for 11 you can get a hot water bottle and a toothbrush in any color. The salesman wizard followed and got into the car. By the way, what's your name? George. Here are 7 silver sickles. George put the luggage on a bed and took out 7 silver sickles. The interior of the night bus is different from ordinary buses. Instead of seats, there are brass beds, and magic candles are lit on the bedside brackets. Wizards who take the bus can sleep directly on the bed until they reach their destination. George, why is this name so familiar? It looks familiar to you. The salesman wizard was stunned for a moment when he heard this, and then quickly rummaged through the discarded newspaper box next to him and pulled out a newspaper from a month ago. He looked at the newspaper, then at George, and immediately stared and exclaimed. So you are George, the Quidditch genius who is rare to see in 1,000 years. It seems that I am somewhat famous in the entire wizarding world. George nodded and smiled when he saw this, but did not deny it. The salesman wizard was obviously also a Quidditch fan. After discovering George's identity, his attitude suddenly improved a lot, and he started chatting with George very talkatively. This is the celebrity effect. Even if you don't know someone, you will immediately have a hidden favorability bonus when you meet them for the first time. Drive, earn. The salesman wizard and the driver wizard said hello, and the night bus suddenly roared and flew out at a high speed that was difficult to recognize with the naked eye, as if it had entered another space. The street lights, mailboxes and trash cans blocking the front automatically jumped out of the way when the car passed by, and then returned to their original positions when the car passed by. When I learn alchemy in the future, I will definitely build such a magic school bus for the mutant school. Seeing this, George couldn't help but sigh in his heart. In fact, he has always had an idea in his heart. That is to reopen the mutant school, but it will no longer be named the mutant school, but the superpower human school. The era of mutants is gone forever, but it still leaves a strong mark in the historical archives of major forces. The students in the school can't stay in school all the time. Sooner or later, they have to learn to integrate into human society to live, and they must not continue like this. If the mutant school is reopened, it will inevitably remind people of the past. The name of mutant will make people think of it as another race, and sooner or later they will be excluded. So simply change the name to the Superpower Human School. In addition to cultivating mutant children in the school, some children with superpowers can also be accepted as students, and various superheroes can be accepted as teachers. In this way, the label of mutants can be diluted, and many current and future superheroes can be attracted to stand on their side. If the school encounters trouble again, he doesn't need to do anything, the teachers and students can handle it, and he can study his magic in peace. No need to worry about trivial matters. Of course, this is just a preliminary idea. Whether it can be implemented and how to implement it need to be decided according to the subsequent development. In less than 10 minutes, the night bus stopped at the door of the Leaky Cauldron. Goodbye, Mr. Thunberg. After saying hello to the wizard ticket seller, George got off the bus with his luggage. When entering Diagon Alley from the Leaky Cauldron, it was completely dark. Most of the shops in Diagon Alley were closed, and only a few wizards were left on the street. The icy cold wind blew across his face, which seemed to foreshadow the troubles that would come next. Along the cobblestone path, passing through Partridge's Crucible shop, Giggs's Pharmacy, and Florin's cold drink shop, George came to Nocturne Alley opposite Gringotts and strode in. There were almost no people in Diagon Alley at night, but Nocturne Alley was just the opposite. Many dark wizards liked to come to Nocturne Alley at night to buy and sell some prohibited items. So George never went out at night before, it was too dangerous. But now, he doesn't care so much. Isn't this little Dora? Is she back from vacation? Not long after entering Nocturne Alley, a skinny old wizard blocked George's way, and then looked at George's suitcase with ill intentions. Seeing this, other dark wizards nearby did not come up to stop him, but stopped and watched the show with gloating. Many dark wizards here know George, and know that he is the little slave adopted by old Murden in the potion shop. But now this little slave not only inherited a large amount of old Murden's inheritance, but also went to Hogwarts to study, which naturally made them feel a little unhappy and jealous. Most of their wealth is not as good as old Murden. It's just that old Murden had just died before, and those Aurors often went to the store, and George rarely went out, so they didn't have much chance. However, now, half a year has passed, and the orders no longer come. It just happened to be at night, so there is no reason to let it go. Killing is impossible. Killing a Hogwarts student will definitely be wanted by the entire Ministry of Magic, and he will no longer be able to mix in the British wizarding world. But there is definitely no problem with robbing. The Aurors can't go to war for robbery, especially since this is in an alley. He can only blame himself for his bad luck. I think you'd better get out of the way. George drew out his wand like lightning and pointed it at the old wizard. The sharp blade flashed with cold light and flew out of George's sleeve and stopped at the old wizard's neck. How can it be so fast? Feeling the cold murderous intent of the sharp blade at his neck, the old wizard's face was full of horror, and other wizards nearby also showed unbelievable expressions. The object relocation charm is not a very profound spell. It can be used to move things in daily life. In battle, it can also block the enemy's magic by moving objects, or directly hit the enemy. Unlike the levitation spell, which makes things float and you have to move them yourself, the relocation spell can move objects directly. What shocked everyone was not that George had learned the relocation spell, but the speed at which George used the relocation spell. With almost no movement of waving the wand or chanting the spell, the moving blade flew to the old wizard's neck, and the keyblade was so fast that people had no time to react. This level of relocation spell is already at the master level. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, when seeing George waving and chanting spells, experienced old wizards would take the lead in using magic attacks, and at worst, they could defend or dodge. It was precisely because George was too fast that the old wizard was caught in the vitals before he could react. If George wanted to, he could completely control the blade to cut the old wizard's neck. Little Dora, I don't have any other intentions, I'll get out of the way, I'll get out of the way now. The old wizard swallowed his saliva and slowly stepped back to make way. Seeing this, no one dared to step forward to stop him. The most important thing in the world of dark wizards is that the strong are respected. If you don't have strength, everyone will want to tear a piece of flesh from you. If you have strength, naturally no one will dare to provoke you. If your strength is strong enough and can bring them benefits, they will rush to follow you. With a wave of the wand, George retracted the blade and continued to move forward with the box. When passing by the old wizard, Page, who was standing on the box, stretched out his claws and grabbed the old wizard, and immediately tore off half of his wizard robe. If George hadn't stopped it from moving, it would have gone straight forward to crush the old wizard's head. The old wizard hurriedly retreated and sat on the ground in fear, but he didn't dare to fight back against George and Page, but just used the repair spell to repair the damaged wizard robe. This guy, the future can't be underestimated. At this moment, George's small back and his owl left a deep impression in the hearts of all the dark wizards. At such a young age, he actually has such magical abilities, and the key is that calm attitude. Even the former Dark Lord is not as good as him at this age. Well, showing your claws appropriately can prevent these guys from coming to cause trouble again. George pulled his suitcase and soon arrived at the door of his potion shop. Of course, he didn't use the relocation charm just now. He knew how to use it, but it was just average. It was good for moving things around, but not for fighting. He used his magnetic control just now, and he took out his wand just to cover it up. Sure enough, it was really looted. Pushing the door open and walking into the potion store, George couldn't help but twitching at the corner of his mouth when he looked at the messy scene inside. At this time, the potion shop was in a mess, and it looked like it had been robbed. It was obvious that a dark wizard had come in and robbed it during the 6 months he went to Hogwarts. Fortunately, he had already sold all the valuable things, so the other party probably returned empty-handed. Restored to the original condition. Waving his wand and casting a repairing spell, the messy potion shop quickly returned to the way it was before he left. The main reason is that he hasn't learned the protective spell yet. Otherwise, he can lay down some anti-lock spells and protective spells before leaving, so that ordinary dark wizards can't get in. This kind of petty thief dark wizard is not very strong. A truly powerful dark wizard cannot do such a shameful thing. Cleaned up. After cleaning up and packing his luggage, George began to stay up late and read again. The magic book he is reading now is called A Preliminary Introduction to Wandology. It is a magic book that specifically explains the knowledge of wands. The publisher is Ollivander, the master wand maker. It explains a lot about wands. Of course, there is only widespread knowledge about magic wands, and there is no mention of how to make them. A wand is mainly divided into two parts, the wand wood and the wand core. Not all wood is suitable for making wands. Only trees that contain magical qualities can be used to make wands. This kind of tree is very rare and difficult to find. It looks like ordinary trees of the same species, and it takes years of experience to identify the differences. But there is also a relatively simple method, which is to see if there is a bowtruckle nest on the tree. Generally, trees with bowtruckle nests can be used to make wands. Different types of trees produce wands with different characteristics. Finding a wand that matches your own characteristics can help you cast spells with twice the result with half the effort. For example, a wand made of acacia tree can only be used to its full power by the most talented wizards, otherwise it will emit strange noises and unpleasant smells, which will greatly reduce the power of magic. Wands made of alder wood like wizards who are kind-hearted and helpful, wands made of apple wood like wizards with goals and ideals, wands made of cedar wood like wizards with strong personalities and loyal characters, and so on. The length, stiffness and elasticity of the wand also affect the wand's power. The core of the wand is even more critical. It is much more important than the wood of the wand. The increase in the magic power of the wand mainly depends on the choice of the core. It is usually made of the hair and organs of magical animals, such as Vela's hair, Thestral's tail feathers, Troll's beard, bird-shaped man-eater's hard nerves and White River monster's back spines, etc. The most precious among them are the tail feathers of the unicorn, the hard nerves of the fire dragon and the tail feathers of the phoenix. Unicorn tail hair. Seeing this, George silently took out a small box from the suitcase, then opened it, revealing several bundles of unicorn tail hairs inside. He knew that wizards like Ollivander were probably not short of money, so it would be very difficult to spend gold and galleons to teach him how to make a wand. That's why he prepared this rare unicorn tail hair. As the most sacred magical animal, unicorns can be said to be full of treasures. Unicorn blood can sustain life. Even if you are on the verge of death, you can forcefully continue your life. Unicorn horns can be used to make high-grade potions, and 1 gram of powder is worth 21 gold galleons. Unicorn tail hair is the best material for making wands. However, the number of exclusive beasts is extremely rare, and there are only a few in the world. There happen to be a few unicorns alive in the Forbidden Forest, although one was killed by Voldemort last year. A few days before leaving school, George secretly left the castle at night and used his wing magic to fly quietly into the Forbidden Forest. Through his psychic ability, he communicated with the creatures in the Forbidden Forest, avoided dangers such as centaurs and acromantula, and found the few surviving unicorns. Then he used magnetic force to control the blade and cut off all the tails of the unicorns at lightning speed, thus harvesting these bundles of snow-white unicorn tail hairs. Anyway, the tail hair of a unicorn is similar to a horse's tail. It will grow back after a few years and will not cause any harm. He didn't believe that with so many unicorn tail hairs, Ollivander couldn't teach him how to make a wand. You must know that a normal unicorn tail has about 2,000 tail feathers. One tail feather can make a top-notch wand, and George harvested the tails of 4 unicorns, which is a total of 8,000. Root and tail hairs. Smash it, and he will smash it until Ollivander is willing to teach him. Early the next morning, George opened the door of the potion shop, and it was already completely white outside. It snowed all night last night, making Nocturne Alley, which usually looks eerie, a little less scary. Stepping on the white snow, leaving a series of footprints, George walked out of Nocturne Alley and arrived at the entrance of Ollivander's wand shop on the south side of Diagon Alley. This is his second visit to this wand store. The first time he came was to buy wands before school started. Ollivander's wand shop can be said to be one of the oldest shops in Diagon Alley. It has been making wands since 382 BC. It looks small and a bit shabby, and the gold sign on the door is peeling off. After pushing the door open and walking in, a ding-dong-ding sound came from the store. "Good afternoon, do you need to buy a wand?" An old man with silver eyes and white hair greeted softly. It was Garrick Ollivander, the owner of this shop. George walked slowly to Ollivander with a smile on his face. "Good afternoon, Mr. Ollivander. My name is George. I am not here to buy a wand, but I want to learn the skills of making a wand from you. Are you kidding? Ollivander's face froze. He felt that this little wizard must be playing a trick on him. Hearing this, George took out a large bag of 100 gold galleons and put it on the counter. I can pay the tuition, as long as you are willing to teach. The tuition is up to you. Sorry, I can't teach you. Ollivander glanced at the gold galleons on the table, showing a surprised look, and then shook his head decisively. Being able to take out so many gold galleons means that the other party really wants to learn wand-making technology, but wand-making technology is the foundation of the Ollivander family's survival in the wizarding world, so how can it be taught to outsiders casually? Not to mention 100, even if it is 10,000 gold galleons, he can't teach. Seeing Ollivander's resolute expression, George sighed, knowing that it was really impossible to impress Ollivander with gold galleons, and then put the box containing 4 bundles of unicorn tail feathers on the table. What if I use these as tuition? Reaching out to open the box, George pushed the box in front of Ollivander. What is the tuition fee? Unicorn tail hair. Ollivander, who was originally calm, almost jumped up on the spot after seeing 4 bundles of unicorn tail hair, and a pair of silver eyes wished to be embedded in the box. George, from today on, you are my student of Ollivander, and I will definitely do my best to train you to be a master staff maker like me. In the wand shop, Ollivander hugged the box of unicorn tail hairs tightly with trembling hands, and vowed to George. Don't be too excited, I believe you. George looked at the bloodshot look in the old Ollivander's eyes at this moment, and was deeply afraid that the old man would accidentally lose his eyes because he was too excited. For a wizard like Ollivander who has been studying wands almost all his life, giving him 8,000 unicorn tail hairs is just like a martial arts idiot giving him 8,000 top-level martial arts secrets, and a pervert giving him 8,000 top beauties. Not to mention asking him to teach you the stick-making skills. Even if you kneel down and call you daddy, he won't hesitate. Okay, when do you want to start learning? Ollivander managed to calm down his overly excited emotions, and then asked. With so many top-notch wand cores, maybe before he dies, he can really develop the most powerful wand comparable to the legendary Elder Wand, and become a legend in the wizarding world and a legend in the wand-making world. Now, if possible. George didn't want to waste time. The sooner he learned to make wands, the sooner his body and another clone would have wands, and their strength would be greatly increased. Touching the box of unicorn tail hair in his hand, Ollivander didn't hesitate at all. He got up and hung up the closed sign at the door, then took George to the backyard. Since George wants to learn now, he will teach now. So George began a happy holiday cane-making journey. Even on Christmas Day, he did not let Ollivander go, dragging him until it was dark before returning to the potion shop. But on the morning of Christmas Day, he still took some time to pick out various gifts for Paige to give away. Among them were Tonks and her Auror colleagues, Slytherin classmates in the same grade, friends such as Harry, Ron, Hermione, Luna, Ginny, and every professor in the school. Even Dumbledore sent a copy. Of course, they are not expensive things. Although he is not short of money, gifts cannot be too expensive, otherwise it will not be a favor and will become a burden. Because the other party also wants to return the gift. In this way, the time lasted until the day before the end of the Christmas holiday. This one is very good. It can be regarded as a qualified wand. Your wand-making talent is very good, but don't be proud. You should continue to practice after returning to school. Ollivander looked at the wand in his hand, which was made with a troll beard as the core and a pine trunk as the wand wood, and nodded with great satisfaction. At first, he just wanted to teach George casually. Wand making is not an easy craft to learn. Basic material knowledge, wand core processing, wand wood polishing, etc., can't be mastered in just a few months. But what I didn't expect was that George had a very high talent for wand making. First of all, the complex basic knowledge, many of which he understood as soon as he explained it to the other party. Secondly, he had a strong hands-on ability and rarely made mistakes. In just half a month, he successfully made a qualified wand. Although there are still some flaws, they are not very important and can be sold normally if hung in the store. Thank you for your guidance during this period. I will come back to you for advice after the summer vacation. George said goodbye to Ollivander politely, then opened the door and left the wand shop. The reason why he can learn to make wands so quickly is not because of his talent for making wands, but mainly because he has 3 brains to learn together and a physical fitness that is far beyond that of a normal wizard. In addition, I had already read a lot of magic books about wand making in school, so I had a certain foundation. This kid, if he studies wand making in the future, he won't be any worse than me. Looking at George's disappearing back, Ollivander sighed again. Meanwhile, the Fairy Tale Guild. George flew out of the library and landed in the guild hall. He glanced around the hall and asked Murajan at the bar. Did you see Natsu? It's so easy to grow trees containing magic in this magical world. You can find a few suitable trees by flying around in the big forest behind the guild. If you want to be more refined, you can spend a little more money and go to a magic store to look for it. With the stick wood, the next step is the stick core. In fact, it is not difficult to make a wand core. There are many magical creatures in this world, and the wizards of fairy tale often take on some crusade missions to defeat some magical creatures that attack towns. It will not be difficult to ask them to bring some fur or horns for themselves when the time comes. No matter how bad it is, he is a magic cat himself. He can barely use a piece of his own hair as a wand core, but the effect will definitely not be very good. He came to Natsu because he heard that Natsu was raised by a fire dragon, could use dragon-slaying magic, and had a physique close to that of a fire dragon. He wanted to see if his hair could be used as a wand core. According to the history books of this world, dragons are the most powerful magical creatures in this world. If Natsu's hair had even 1% of the effect of dragons, it would be stronger than most magical creatures. So he wanted to give it a try. Tell me, Natsu. He accepted a mission to find a book and teamed up with Lucy to do the mission. Murajan replied gently. Levi, who was standing on the task bulletin board looking for tasks, ran over quickly after hearing the words. Is it the 200,000 book search task? I was still hesitating whether to take it, but Natsu got it first. The 200,000 book search task is relatively less dangerous, but it is a waste of time. When the time comes, the guild will divide it into teams of 3 and divide it equally, so each person will not get much. Minus the round-trip travel expenses, food and lodging, and the consumption of some magic props that may appear, it will be even less. So she had been hesitating whether to take it before. Maybe you were right not to take it, Levi. The task client has adjusted the 200,000 reward to 2 million. At this time, President Makarov jumped down from the 2nd floor and landed on the bar. What? A 2 million reward for finding a book? This is almost the same as the reward for a large-scale crusade task. The wizards in the guild heard the president's words and immediately started to discuss. Many wizards regretted not taking the book search task and missed the 2 million reward in vain. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Natsu was gone, and George returned to the library again, but he also felt that it was right for Levi not to accept the task. High rewards mean high risks, and it is definitely not just a simple book-finding task. And the strength of Levi's team, to be honest, is really not good enough. Levi's 3-dimensional text magic has many effects, but the attack power of each one is too low. The most important thing is that she herself is not good at fighting and has some problems with her mentality. Her 2 teammates are not as strong as her. To be honest, even George, who doesn't have a wand yet, is not his opponent if he takes it seriously. Do you have any clues? George, who had just returned to school, looked at Harry and the other 2 and asked with a smile in the Hogwarts library. Before leaving school, he told the 3 kids the password of the Slytherin dormitory that week. No, Harry looked a little frustrated, while Ron said confidently. Although there are no clues, I can be sure that it is definitely Malfoy. Who else in the school can be the heir of Slytherin besides him? But Malfoy's performance at that time did not seem to be lying. Hermione shook her head, not quite agreeing with Ron's statement. On Christmas Eve, the 3 of them successfully used the Polyjuice potion to transform into Malfoy's followers, and entered the Slytherin common room with the password given by George. But they did not get the answer they wanted, because Malfoy did not admit that he opened the Chamber of Secrets. So this battle plan failed. Don't worry, take your time. Even the professors can't find any clues, which means that the heir is hiding very well. George comforted him and continued to read the magic book. Recently, he began to study the Armored Charm, a spell with extremely strong defensive power. In the magic duel before Christmas, he found that this spell was really useful in battle. When the 7th grade wizard cast this spell, it was like a turtle shell, and it could not be broken without a sneak attack from behind. The key is that after a certain understanding of the armored charm, he knew that this spell can not only defend against magic but also physical attacks. Even Muggle guns cannot penetrate the armored charm. However, the armored charm also has disadvantages, that is, it can only defend one side, and it must continue to use the magic wand to input magic to maintain it, which also means that other magic cannot be launched at the same time to counterattack. If you want to counterattack, you must first stop the defense of the armored charm. This disadvantage is nothing for George, because in addition to magic attacks, he also has superpowers. You can use the armored charm to defend in front, and then use superpowers to control blades and needles to attack, or directly use a gun to track and shoot in an arc. The only problem is that this spell is a 5th grade spell, which is quite difficult. It will probably take some time to master it if 3 heads learn it at the same time. By the way, we found this, which may be related to the opening of the Chamber of Secrets 50 years ago. At this time, Harry took out a small, thin, tattered black cover book from his book bag and placed it on the table in the library. This is a diary with T.M. Riddle's name on it. Ron said he saw it in the trophy display room. Riddle won the Special Contribution Award 50 years ago. And Hermione guessed that it is very likely that he won this award because he caught the person who opened the Chamber of Secrets 50 years ago. Voldemort's Horcrux diary. George looked at the diary on the table, and his heart felt the evil and powerful soul breath and the tempting spiritual suggestion in it. His face froze, and then he quickly forced himself to return to normal. Then what did you see written in the diary? Nothing, a blank. I tried using the apparition charm and the apparition eraser, but they didn't work, so I want to ask if you have any solution. Hermione replied helplessly. She felt that there must be something recorded in the diary, hidden by special magic. George had read more books than her, and might know how to crack it. George wanted to reach out for the notebook, but soon reason restrained this desire. If he told the 3 little ones at this time to let them hand over the notebook to him for research, then with the trust of the 3 little ones in him, they would definitely agree. Then maybe he could use the soul of the young Voldemort in the diary to obtain a lot of knowledge of dark magic. However, reason told him that he must not do this. On the one hand, Dumbledore might have been watching Voldemort's diary for a long time. If he took it from Harry, he would definitely be monitored by Dumbledore, and everything would fall into Dumbledore's eyes. On the other hand, even if he had psychic abilities, he could not guarantee that he would not be tempted by Voldemort's dark magic, which was too dangerous. For safety reasons, it is better not to touch it for the time being. When Dumbledore leaves Hogwarts Castle, he will go to the restricted book area to learn the dark magic, which is safer and more secure. In fact, he tried to find Snape's Half-Blood Prince's notebook to see if he could learn the sharpshooter in advance, but he never found it. However, before the Christmas holiday, Snape revealed that he might teach him a few original spells this semester. I wonder if there is a sharpshooter. I have seen in a book about alchemy that many magic items have their own ideas because they are given the Enlightenment spell. If they cannot be recognized by them, their abilities cannot be used. This diary may not be an ordinary diary. Maybe the Enlightenment spell is attached. You can try to communicate with it. How to communicate? Harry was confused. Talk to it. I don't know either. Talk to it, or write directly on it. You can go back and try slowly. George smiled and reminded. The 3 kids thought it made sense, waved to George, and quickly left the library to go back to the common room to try. Thank you, George. You're welcome. George took a deep breath and continued to read the magic book. Some risks can be taken, but some cannot. For a period of time, because Ginny lost her diary and was picked up by Harry, the Chamber of Secrets was never opened again, and the school was temporarily calm again. Half a month later, the mutant school. George looked at the pile of wood in front of him and couldn't help frowning. None is suitable. This is all the types of wood in this world that he asked Leon to send his men to collect, but none of them is suitable for making a wand. Since he learned to make a wand, he must have thought about having one here in Marvel as soon as possible, so that his magic can exert its greatest power. However, this is not Harry Potter and fairy tale after all, and there is no corresponding substitute in a short time. The wand core is easy to say. After his attempts, he can temporarily use the hair of Professor X, the most powerful psychic. If Phoenix Girl is still alive, it should be better to use Phoenix Girl's hair. But the wand stem has not found a suitable substitute. In his imagination, if he could use the trunk of the World Tree as a wand, he could definitely make the top-level magic wand. Unfortunately, the trunk of the World Tree is not something he can get at now. Or the branches on Groot's body should also work. After all, they can be used as the handle of the Storm Axe. But Groot is in the universe now, and he can't go there now. In fact, in George's opinion, it is not impossible to use other things to make the wand instead of trees. Just like the best magic metal Uru metal in Asgard, the effect is definitely not bad. Similarly, he can't get it now. What else can be used as a substitute? Just as George was thinking about how to find a substitute for the staff in this world, Wolverine made a video call. George, a silver robot-like thing just flew out of Stark's mansion at a very fast speed. This is the photo I took. Wolverine sent over a somewhat blurry photo. It seems that it has been initially completed. Looking at the unpainted first-generation Mark suit in the photo, George knew that Tony Stark had successfully developed the epic-making weapon steel suit after this period of retreat. Maybe, this guy can be of some help. As soon as his thoughts changed, he had some ideas in his mind. Logan, I'll have Issa pick you up later. What? No need to continue to monitor and protect him. Wolverine had a confused look on his face. George nodded. No, come back and rest. We will officially visit you tomorrow. His idea is simple. Since he can't find a suitable wand wood to make a wand at the moment, why not use the black technology of this world to see if he can use the power of technology to make a wand wood? He does not require that this wand can amplify his magical power like a normal wand, but that it can be used normally so that he can say goodbye to the shortcomings of slow hand gesture casting and allow magic to be effective in battle. At this stage, the only person he knows and has the ability to do this is probably Tony Stark. It just so happens that Tony Stark has developed the Iron Suit, and his plan to counterattack the Ackley Gene Company and solve the hidden danger of Xander Rice can also be put on the agenda. He had been keeping a low profile before and did not go to Dr. Raya's trouble because he was not strong enough. At that time, an X-24 paired with a sniper was a great threat to them. But now, even if he doesn't use magic, he can easily handle it with just the ability to control magnetism. And his magic ability is no longer just a lock-opening spell, but has learned dozens of spells, including some high-level spells. Giant magic and light magic were also introduced during this time. The overall strength has increased more than 10 times compared to before. What's more, he is not alone, and there is Wolverine who has returned to the fighting strength of his youthful peak. If Tony Stark is added to the mix, it is really foolproof. Don't underestimate Tony Stark. Although he only wears the first-generation steel suit, he also has supersonic flight speed and various high-tech weapons for long-range attacks. As long as they don't encounter enemies that restrain their abilities, such as George, most superheroes are no match for him. Now that Dr. Rice has cloned Wolverine, it is naturally possible to clone other mutants. If the delay is too long, he might get a big one. Instead of passively waiting for the opponent to hit the door, it is better to take the initiative. He has already had this idea. If I can get a wand that I can barely use this time, I'll set out immediately. After hanging up the video, George asked Issa to fly to Tony Stark's private mansion in Malibu, California, and pick up Wolverine who was hiding nearby. Not long after Wolverine left, Tony returned wearing a steel suit and smashed it from the roof of his mansion, destroying a multi-million-dollar luxury car. After taking off his steel suit and applying an ice pack, he couldn't help but feel a little more touched when he saw the simple version of the arc reactor that his assistant, Pepper, had packaged for him. Sitting in his studio, he said to his smart butler Jarvis. Jarvis, for the record, when we were above 40,000 feet, the main sensor failed, and there was also some problem with the casing's pressurization. I think it may have been caused by ice. Sir, your observations are very keen. If you intend to enter space, you must improve the shell material. Jarvis gave advice. Tony thought for a moment and ordered. Contact Cisco and ask them to reselect the shell material to the gold titanium alloy used by the Seraph tactical satellite. This can not only ensure the integration requirements, but also maintain its power-to-weight ratio. Understood, sir. Are the graphics displayed according to the required specifications? Okay. The renderings are completed. This color scheme is too cool. Tony looked at the golden steel suit on the computer and couldn't help but shook his head. Using gold all over it would look too nouveau riche and would lower his taste. It's my fault. You've always been low-key and simple. Jarvis's answer seemed to contain a bit of ridicule, and Tony didn't care. He glanced at the sports car next to him and replied, "Add a little bit of that sports car red. Okay, it matches your low-key image. The coloring is done." In a few seconds, a brand new golden red steel suit appeared on the computer. Tony looked at it and nodded with satisfaction. "I like it very much, let's put it together." Automatic assembly begins and is expected to be completed in 5 hours. Have you found any relevant information about George? At this time, Tony suddenly thought of something and asked. After returning last time, he did not tell anyone the information about George, including the most trusted Pepper. This was his promise to George. But out of curiosity, he still wanted to know who the George who saved him was. "No, sir, I searched for all the people named George and found none with the same characteristics as you described." "Isn't his name George?" Iron Man hesitated for a moment, then ordered. "You look up everyone who bought Stark stock after my accident and then sold it before I came back." "Yes, sir." After a while, a series of names appeared on his computer. Iron Man took a quick glance and was instantly attracted by a name. Leon. This guy actually bought so much. Check his information. There are many people who meet the requirements. When he had an accident, many people spoke ill of the Stark Group and the stock price plummeted. However, after the Stark Group has been prosperous for so many years, there are still many die-hard investors. But it's not normal to buy so much at once like this. It's actually not him. Even if it's not, it should still matter. Seeing Leon's photos and related introductions, Tony had some guesses in his mind. At this time, a piece of news suddenly broke out on the TV in the studio. The Disney Concert Hall, with its red carpet, is brightly lit and bustling tonight, and Tony Stark's third annual charity ball for the Firefighter Family Foundation will be held here. The elite of Los Angeles upper-class society gather here, and the stars are shining brightly. The initiator of this event, Tony Stark, caused controversy by speaking out loud at a press conference not long ago, and he has since disappeared. Some say he suffered from post-concussion syndrome and was bedridden for several weeks. "Jarvis, no need to wait for me." Tony put down the ice pack with an ugly look on his face, got up and left the studio. He was going to make a show tonight to prove that he was not bedridden. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.